Chapter 408. Old K and Dian Wei didn't have it as easy as Suda, but they still managed to catch the two kingdoms off guard. The war was now in a stalemate. Damn it, why haven't the other three factions responded yet? Where's my reinforcement? Do they even care about the Celestial Wolf Kingdom? Shawshank had been under constant attack from the Fire Dragon Empire for the past few days, and he was already in a terrible state. However, the other three kingdoms that he contacted didn't reply to him at all. What he didn't know was that the Blue River Kingdom had already been destroyed, and the other two kingdoms were also being held back. Moreover, the roads were blocked by the Fire Dragon Empire, so they couldn't send any news. General, we don't have enough food. If this goes on, we won't be able to hold on for much longer, the general said with a worried expression. What? The troops that are escorting the food still haven't arrived? Shawshank frowned. The general shook his head with a worried expression. We've already urged them to come 4 or 5 times, but they still haven't arrived. If we wait another 2 days, we'll run out of food. Damn it. Shawshank smashed the table angrily and then frowned. Send troops to the nearby cities to collect food. Shawshank made a difficult decision. General, please reconsider. This is a little inappropriate. The general quickly advised. If Shawshank really did this, it would undoubtedly bring bad influence to the Celestial Wolf Kingdom, and it might even make enemies. What else can we do? Are we going to let our 2 million soldiers all starve to death? Shawshank roared angrily. The generals fell silent. If they ran out of food, the morale of the army would definitely be in chaos. I have no choice but to do this. Hurry up and send someone to contact the transport troops and ask them what's going on. Big brother we've already stopped 3 waves of food from the Celestial Wolf Kingdom. Do you think they're still in the dark? Zhao Yun and Yu Fei were escorting food back to Little Cloud City. I think they won't be able to hold on for much longer. We should be careful in case they do something desperate, Yu Fei said with a worried expression. I don't think they'll do something desperate. I think they'll try to gather food now. Zhao Yun analyzed. As soon as Zhao Yun's voice fell, the scene immediately quieted down. Kanu Empire. The two of them looked at each other and suddenly spoke in unison. Kanu Nation was a marquee-level nation and was the closest to the Celestial Wolf Kingdom. If Shawshank wanted food, he would definitely go to Kanu Nation. However, a mocking smile soon appeared on their faces. This was because the Kunmarkis Empire was no longer the Kunmarkis Empire. It was just a disguise. The Emperor had been killed long ago and now belonged to the forces of the Fire Dragon Empire. This is getting interesting, Zhao Yun said with a smile. At the same time, Guan Yu also smiled. Ask your king to come out and meet our great general. Tell him that the great general of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom has arrived. Otherwise, we will attack your city. In the capital of Kanhu Kingdom, Shawshank led an army of 300,000 and surrounded it arrogantly. This lowly one, Huanggai, did not know. Please forgive me. A moment later, the city gate was suddenly opened. A young man walked out with the crowd surrounding him. Shawshank glanced disdainfully at Huanggai. He did not think much of Huanggai and asked with contempt, Who are you? This lowly one, Huanggai, is this city's. Before Huanggai could finish, Shawshank interrupted. I don't care who you are. Have you heard of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom? Of course I have. The Celestial Wolf Kingdom is like thunder to my ears. This lowly one admires great General Shawshank even more, Huanggai said with a humble smile. Ha ha! Huanggai's words made Shawshank feel smug. The more he looked at Huanggai, the happier he became. Do you know who I am? General is handsome and mighty. One look, and I can tell that you are a great general. This lowly one does not know and does not dare to make wild guesses. Huanggai flattered again and shook his head. Shawshank smiled so widely that his eyes narrowed. It had been a long time since he had met someone with such foresight. He couldn't help but signal to his deputy with his eyes. The deputy immediately understood Shawshank's thoughts and said with a smile, This is the great general of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom, Shawshank. Ah! Huanggai immediately showed a surprised expression. Then he became ecstatic. I did not know that great General Shawshank would be here. This lowly one did not welcome you. This lowly one has sinned. Sir, please invite him in. I will order people to prepare a banquet." Huang Gai quickly ordered his subordinates to open the city gates. He did not treat Shawshank as an outsider at all. If this were the modern world on Earth, they would be Shawshank's fanatical fans. Good. Let's dismount and enter the city. Shawshank did not expect his fame to be so great that he had such fanatical fans here. Since this was the case, he could not ruin his image. He ordered his subordinates, "Just wait outside. I'll go in by myself." Looking at the vast army, Shawshank waved his hand. "You do not need to be nervous. Dismount and rest." Huang Gai secretly sneered at the side and quickly ordered the soldiers, "You are so blind. Go and prepare water and food for these brothers. This is great General Shawshank's army of tigers and wolves. If they are hungry or thirsty, I will hold you responsible." That Huang Gai, right? You are too polite. There's no need to be so polite. Shawshank looked at Huang Gai reprimanding the soldiers and could not help but laugh. "Sir, you do not need to worry. Our brothers are already tired from the journey. How can we disturb their mood for such a small matter? Sir, please invite him in," Huang Gai quickly said humbly. The soldiers of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom thought that there was going to be a battle. They did not expect it to go so smoothly. Their tense minds slowly relaxed. Shawshank really thought that Huang Gai was his admirer, so he did not suspect anything and arrogantly followed Huang Gai into the city. "Sir, please." Huang Gai led the way in front. Shawshank followed behind Huang Gai without any suspicion. "Sir, why have you come here? I will help if I can," Huang Gai asked carefully. After being teased by Huang Gai, Shawshank was a little embarrassed to speak. "Sir, there is no harm in asking." Huang Gai looked like he would agree to any condition. "All right. I hope Brother Huang will not laugh at me." Shawshank sighed and explained the reason. "Haha, I was wondering what it was. Isn't it just food? There's no need for Great General Shawshank to ask. I will take care of all the food for your men." Huang Gai laughed and said generously, "Are you serious?" Shawshank thought that he would have to waste his breath. He did not expect Huang Gai to be so easy to talk to. However, Huang Gai suddenly changed his tone. But what? As long as I can do it, I will do my best." Shawshank was in a good mood and said directly, "But you will have to leave this city first." "What do you mean?" Chapter 409. As soon as Shawshank finished speaking, thousands of soldiers rushed out from all directions. Shawshank narrowed his eyes and looked at the thousands of soldiers. Finally, he looked at Huang Gai and asked sternly, "Huang Gai, do you think these useless soldiers can take me down?" After Shawshank finished speaking, he immediately released his cultivation level. The pinnacle of martial spirit realm pressed down on Huang Gai, making it hard for him to breathe. "You misunderstood." Huang Gai was shocked, but he was not afraid. He shook his head and said, "Huh?" Shawshank raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "What he means is that your opponent is us, not him." Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. Shawshank turned around and saw two young men with spears looking at him mockingly. Shawshank became cautious and quickly asked, "Who are you two?" "I am the great general of the Tianlang Kingdom. Do you want to go against the Tianlang Kingdom?" "Ha ha ha." Shawshank's words caused the crowd to laugh. "What are you laughing at?" Shawshank narrowed his eyes and asked, "I am Zhao Zilong of the Fire Dragon Empire. I am Yu Fei of the Fire Dragon Empire." Zhao Yun and Yu Fei laughed when they saw Shawshank's confused expression. "What?" Shawshank's expression suddenly changed. Without thinking, he flew into the sky. "Get down here." Zhao Yun was a first-order martial honorable, and his cultivation level had stabilized. He charged at Shawshank with the Courage of Dragon's silver spear in his hand. "Don't try to stop me." Shawshank raised his weapon and blocked. Bang! Their weapons collided. Without a doubt, Shawshank was sent flying and smashed into the ground, creating a large crater. Cough, cough, cough. Shawshank climbed up from the ground with a look of disbelief. He asked cautiously, "You are a martial honorable? Ha, you have a good eye." Zhao Yun smiled faintly. "Umph." Shawshank snorted and tried to escape again. Shawshank did not forget to look back at Zhao Yun and realized that Zhao Yun did not chase after him. Before he could rejoice, He heard another voice. You want to run? I don't believe that he's still a peak martial venerable. Shawshank refused to believe it and ran with all his strength. I must report the news of the Fire Dragon Empire having a martial honor to the Tianlang Emperor. The Fire Dragon Empire is definitely not as weak as it seems. Stay here. Yu Fei was ignored by Shawshank. The leaking spring spear in his hand shot towards Shawshank like a dragon. When Shawshank heard the sound of something breaking through the air behind him, he was shocked. This Yu Fei's cultivation level was definitely not below his. Shawshank didn't have much time to think as he rolled to the side. Shawshank's helmet fell off, and he looked miserable. Shawshank said unwillingly, "You have more people. If you have the ability, fight me one-on-one. If you lose, I'll be at your mercy. If you win, let me go. Then let's fight." Yu Fei's body was filled with fighting spirit. Both of them were at the pinnacle of the martial spirit realm at the same time. Although Yu Fei was very talented. However, since Shawshank was able to become the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's great general and stand out from the masses, his aptitude was naturally not bad. The two immediately engaged in a fierce battle. For a moment, they were locked in a fierce battle. This Shawshank really has some skills. He's actually on par with Big Brother. Zhao Yun was secretly shocked as he watched from the side. According to Yu Fei's battle strength, he could absolutely crush an expert of the same level. However, based on the current situation, it could be said that the two of them were evenly matched. Heavenly Fox Rush. Shawshank suddenly shouted and actually used a martial skill. This was a high-grade mystic martial skill. It was a martial skill passed down from his ancestors. He usually didn't use it casually, but he relied on this martial skill to overcome countless dangers. In front of Shawshank, a 4 to 5 meter long fox phantom appeared. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it bit towards Yu Fei. Oh no! Zhao Yun was anxious and was about to attack because he knew that martial skills were definitely Yu Fei's weakness. This was because, including himself, he didn't know any martial skills at all. Zilong, don't move. Suddenly, Yu Fei's voice sounded in Zhao Yun's mind. Zhao Yun immediately suppressed the urge to make a move to stop him. Looking at the fox phantom pouncing towards him, Yu Fei coldly snorted and charged forward without fear. How arrogant! Seeing Yu Fei charge forward without fear, Shawshank sneered at Yu Fei. Sure enough, when the fox phantom collided with Yu Fei, a blood mist immediately appeared. It was obvious that it was Yu Fei's blood. Because he used a martial skill, Shawshank's head was covered in sweat. It was obvious that he had consumed a lot of his martial strength. Die for me. For Shawshank to be able to reach his current position, his methods were naturally vicious. He didn't give his opponent the slightest chance. Even if the Fox Phantom and Yu Fei were fighting, Shawshank still wasn't convinced. Shawshank was still worried. He raised his weapon and slashed at Yu Fei. Shawshank's attack made the air crackle, as if it was going to split open the air. One could imagine how much strength Shawshank used. Seeing Shawshank's ferocity, all the soldiers couldn't help but retreat. They looked at the incomparably valiant Shawshank with fear. Huanggai swallowed his saliva and hurriedly looked at Zhao Yun. General Zhao this? Zhao Yun also frowned. He didn't know whether to attack or not. He wanted to attack, but Yu Fei had just warned him not to attack. But according to the current situation, if he didn't attack, then Yu Fei would be in trouble. But he already saw that Yu Fei's body was covered in wounds. He had turned into a bloody man. His hair was disheveled, and he looked extremely miserable. Attack! Zhao Yun's heart sank. He wanted to stop Shawshank's attack. Break for me! Suddenly, a sonorous and powerful voice sounded. Everyone raised their heads in disbelief and looked at Yu Fei, who seemed to have crawled out of purgatory. They saw Yu Fei's power tremble. The already weakened Fox Phantom instantly turned into nothingness and dissipated in the air. Fall for me. Yu Fei spoke again. The showering spring spear turned into countless phantoms and smashed toward Shawshank. How is this possible? Shawshank's expression changed. He didn't understand how Yu Fei suddenly changed so much. But he didn't have time to think. He immediately raised his weapon to block, but he found that he couldn't block it at all. The thousands of phantoms were like real attacks that hit his body. Shawshank looked as if he had seen a ghost, because every time he said a word, his body would have to endure a fierce attack. At this moment, Shawshank's entire body had become even more miserable than Yufei's. Shawshank couldn't understand how Yufei, whose life was hanging by a thread, suddenly became a different person. Chapter 410. Prince Yang, the general under Shawshank of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom, was also at the peak of the martial spirit realm. However, his position was slightly lower than Shawshank's. Hearing the commotion outside, Yang Wang immediately picked up his purple gold battle axe and walked out aggressively. He grabbed the neck of a soldier and asked angrily, "What's going on?" "General Yang, the Fire Dragon Empire is attacking us." The soldier quickly replied, "Why are you panicking? Is the general not back yet?" Seeing the soldier's panicked expression, Prince Yang said unhappily. After all, he still had more than 2 million soldiers on his side, although the Fire Dragon Empire had twice as many soldiers as him. But so what? Last time, he had only suffered heavy losses and retreated in a panic because he had fallen into their trap. The strength of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom soldiers was definitely more than twice as strong as the Fire Dragon Empire's. Therefore, Prince Yang was not worried about a real battle. "The general went to the Kunhu Kingdom and hasn't returned yet." The soldier quickly replied, "Organize the troops and follow me into battle. Go and invite the general back." After Prince Yang finished speaking, dozens of generals had already gathered around him. "Greetings, General Yang." All the generals bowed. "Cut the crap. Follow me and kill the enemy. Let's show them who's boss." Prince Yang raised his purple gold battle axe and roared, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" With Prince Yang in charge, the army calmed down. They all raised their weapons and roared. "Where are the enemy generals? Come out and die." Prince Yang stood between the two armies. He wanted to use his own strength to kill the enemy's spirit. How arrogant. "I don't know if you have the ability to do so." Guan Yu sat on the red hare horse and held the green dragon crescent blade in his hand. The green dragon on the blade seemed to be alive as it swam around the blade. Guan Yu gently stroked his beard as he looked at Yang Wang and said, "Red-faced man, who do you think you are? Get out of my way and ask your general to come out." Prince Yang glanced at Guan Yu's cultivation. He did not find any waves of martial arts energy and mistook Guan Yu for an ordinary person. "I am the great general of the Fire Dragon Empire, Guan Yu." Guan Yu was furious after being completely ignored by King Yang, and he said with an ugly expression, "Oh, you're the Fire Dragon Empire's great general? So it's a red-faced man. I wonder if he's peeking at a lady bathing." "Ha ha!" Yang Wang mocked. Then, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom soldiers started laughing loudly. As for the soldiers and officers of the Fire Dragon Empire, when they saw their great general being insulted, all of them were furious and wanted nothing more than to start a war right now. "Bastard! How dare you insult our great general? Sun Tzu will take your life." A young man charged out from the Fire Dragon Empire's camp. The cultivation of a second-level martial spirit appeared on his body. With a broadsword in hand, he rushed out. Sun Tzu could be said to be an expert, and he had been waiting for the right opportunity to be able to show his face in front of an army of 1,000,000. He believed that there would be no better opportunity than this to show off himself. "General Yang Wang, you don't have to do anything. Leave this kid to me." A general immediately rushed out from behind Yang Wang. His cultivation was at the first level of martial spirit, but he was much older than Sun Tzu. "Go to hell." The general held a sledgehammer in his hand. With the force of tsunami, he smashed it towards Sun Tzu's face. Sun Tzu snorted coldly. With a face full of disdain, he jumped up and chopped at the general's head with the broadsword in his hand. Boom! With a loud sound, the general could not withstand Sun Tzu's strength, and his arms were shattered. Sun Tzu quickly chopped off the general's head. Sun Tzu picked up the head and returned to his mount. He looked forward proudly. Roar! Seeing Sun Tzu behead a local general so easily, the soldiers of the Fire Dragon Empire roared in unison. "Kid, not bad." Looking at Sun Tzu, Guan Yu looked at him approvingly. The anger in his heart had dissipated by quite a bit. Trash! Yang Wang roared. He did not expect that in just 2 rounds, the general would be killed. This was definitely a fatal blow to the morale of the army. Whoever kills this arrogant kid will be heavily rewarded. Yang Wang disdained to make a move on such trash. I'll do it. A young general raised a longbow and rushed towards Sun Tzu. The young general's cultivation was at the 3rd level of the martial spirit realm. In terms of cultivation, he was 1 level higher than Sun Tzu. The bow in the general's hand was half full. A 10-feet-long arrow pierced through the air and shot towards Sun Tzu. The general did not stop at all. Once again, he knocked 3 arrows and pulled them to 70% full before shooting them at Sun Tzu. Following that, he took out another 3 arrows and knocked them on a string. This time, the bow was fully loaded and shot towards Sun Tzu. Although he had shot 3 times in a row, he had done it in one breath without any hesitation. It was clear that his archery skills were extraordinary. A total of 7 arrows, as if they could pierce through the sun and moon, shot towards Sun Tzu like 7 bolts of lightning. At this moment, Sun Tzu did not dare to be careless. He raised his broadsword in front of his body and soared into the air. Clang! The first arrow collided with Sun Tzu's broadsword. Poochie! The remaining 6 arrows shot towards Sun Tzu's mouth. Immediately, 6 bowl-sized bloody holes appeared on the body of Sun Tzu's mouth. This was not the end. When the 6 arrows hit the ground, a few meter-wide craters appeared on the ground. Whoosh! Seeing that Sun Tzu had soared into the air and did not hit him, the general was not disappointed. He once again knocked an arrow. He believed that with Sun Tzu's martial strength, he would not be able to hold on for long. As long as Sun Tzu's physical strength was insufficient, it would be the time for him to shoot Sun Tzu to death. The general was not in a hurry as he continued to shoot at Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu anxiously dodged in the air. Slowly, a look of annoyance appeared on his face. If this continued, when his martial strength was exhausted, he would be in trouble. That would be a slap to the face of his lord. Furthermore, he was only at the 2nd level of the martial spirit realm. Flying consumed a lot of energy, so the consumption of martial arts would definitely be faster than the consumption of the archer general. Shoot him to death. Shoot him to death. Seeing Sun Tzu constantly dodging, the soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom roared excitedly. As for the soldiers of the Fire Dragon Empire, they were sweating for Sun Tzu. Good. Shoot him down. This general will reward you handsomely. If this continued, Sun Tzu would definitely be in trouble. King Yang could not help but roar. When the general heard King Yang's words, he was immediately overjoyed. He hurriedly replied, "Thank you, General. This general will definitely shoot through this bird's head. I'll fight it out with you." Seeing that the general was distracted, this was a rare opportunity. Sun Tzu steeled his heart and slashed at the arrow that was shooting towards him. Like a missile, he charged towards the general. You're courting death." Seeing Sun Tzu charging towards him without any regard for his life, the general could not help but sneer. Originally, it would take a lot of time to waste with Sun Tzu like this. However, at this moment, Sun Tzu did not know whether he was dead or alive. He had completely become a live target. Chapter 411. I'll fight it out with you. Looking at the arrow flying towards him, Sun Tzu knew that he could not dodge it. If he dodged it now, he might not have any chance at all, and if he went all out, he might be able to drag the general down with him. Sun Tzu looked at the arrow that was shooting towards him. It carried a thick, killing intent, as if the god of death had descended. Sun Tzu did not slow down at all. Instead, he increased his speed and rushed towards the general. Madman! Madman! Seeing Sun Tzu acting so recklessly, the general's expression changed as he shouted in fear. He naturally understood the outcome of Sun Tzu's actions. Naturally, he wanted to perish together with him. The general did not dare to tangle with him and was about to leave. This was because although he was a martial artist, he cultivated the art of archery. If it was a close combat, he could deal with those below the martial spirit realm. However, Facing this second-stage martial spirit, he really did not have any confidence. Poochie, poochie. Two consecutive sounds of arrows piercing through flesh could be heard. Sun Tzu's body paused as blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. He said with a mocking smile, "You want to run? No way. Die." The saber in Sun Tzu's hand slashed down at the general from above. The general hurriedly used his bow to block. Kacha! With a cracking sound, the bow in the general's hand broke. Sun Tzu's strength had been halved, but it was still enough to deal with the general. Die! Looking at the two conspicuous holes in Sun Tzu's abdomen, the general was alarmed. He grabbed an arrow and aimed it at Sun Tzu's chest. Sun Tzu acted as if he did not see it. At this moment, he only wanted to kill the general. The saber in Sun Tzu's hand finally fell. At this moment, the general had no room to react. He could only watch as the saber slashed at him. The saber slashed down from above and split the general in half. After killing the general, Sun Tzu knelt on one knee and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, there was a satisfied smile on his face. Roar, roar, roar. The soldiers of the Fire Dragon Empire were all infected by Sun Tzu's reckless actions. At this moment, there were still two bloody holes in Sun Tzu's body. One could almost see through the other side. Die! Another of his generals had been killed. King Yang was filled with grief and indignation. Furthermore, Sun Tzu's actions were indeed shocking. If this continued, the morale of the Fire Dragon Empire's army would definitely soar, while the morale of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's army would fall to rock bottom. This was something he absolutely could not allow. Yang Wang opened his arms, and two purple golden battle axes appeared in his hands. He rushed towards Sun Tzu, as if he was going to smash Sun Tzu's head. Seeing Yang Wang rushing towards him, Sun Tzu knew that he was no match for him. He closed his eyes and waited for death. After all, he was only in the second level of the martial spirit realm. Even if he was at the peak of his cultivation, he was still no match for Yang Wang. What's more, now that he was seriously injured, there was no chance of survival. Long live Yin Long. Lord, this general is loyal to you. Sun Tzu shouted before he died. But Yang Wang rushed in front of Sun Tzu like a bolt of lightning. The two purple gold axes were about to collide. Get out of my way. Suddenly, a loud roar was heard. Before King Yang could react, and before anyone could see it clearly, King Yang's head fell to the ground, and the two purple gold axes fell to the ground. Kid, you're not bad. You won't die yet. Guan Yu said softly. Wow. Suddenly, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone looked at the green-robed Guan Yu, and they were all shocked. What cultivation level is this? How can he be so powerful? Could he be a martial honorable? Yang Wang could not resist at all. He was actually killed. Thank you, great general. Hearing the voice beside his ear, Sun Tzu suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Guan Yu beside him. Sun Tzu was also dumbfounded. Then he looked at the two purple gold battle axes beside him and the decapitated Yang Wang. Sun Tzu immediately understood and quickly thanked Guan Yu. There had always been a rumor in the Fire Dragon Empire that Guan Yu was a peak martial honorable, but they did not believe it. But at this moment, no one doubted Guan Yu's cultivation level. In front of him, a peak martial king could not resist at all. If he was not a martial honorable, then what could he be? Kill. Guan Yu helped Sun Tzu up and pointed his green dragon crescent blade at the soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The word kill resounded between heaven and earth. At this moment, the morale of the Fire Dragon Empire was high, and the two armies instantly charged at each other. Where is the great general? Why is the great general not back yet? At this moment, the Heavenly Wolf Empire generals could only treat Shawshank as their last hope. As they killed the enemy, they anxiously thought to themselves, "Everyone, look at who this is." Suddenly, a voice pierced through the air. A silver-robed general was in the air, holding a human head in his left hand and the Courage of Dragon's silver spear in his right hand. Hearing Zhao Yun's voice, everyone involuntarily raised their heads and looked at the sky. That is, great general. Many of the soldiers looked carefully, but they were all shocked and could not recover from their shock. Reporting to the great general, this is Shawshank's dog head. Shawshank has been killed. Zhao Yun immediately bowed and reported to Guan Yu. Hearing Zhao Yun's words, the people of the Heavenly Wolf Empire panicked even more. It really is the great general. How could the great general die? The great general and General Yang Wang are both dead. What should we do? Too terrifying. This is simply too terrifying. Originally, when Yang Wang was killed, the morale of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army had already dropped greatly. Now that the news of Shawshank's death had taken away the backbone of the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army, they did not know what to do. Kill. The Fire Dragon Empire's soldiers reacted the fastest and immediately attacked the Heavenly Wolf Empire's soldiers beside them. At this moment, the morale of the Fire Dragon Empire's army was at its peak, but the Heavenly Wolf Empire's army was in disarray. Zhao Yun flew in the air and specifically targeted the generals. As long as they were targeted by Zhao Yun, there was only one outcome: a spear through the head. As for these soldiers, Guan Yu could not be bothered to attack. With the green dragon crescent blade in hand, he stood in the air like a god of war. Not only could he suppress the Heavenly Wolf Empire's soldiers, but he could also inspire the Fire Dragon Empire's soldiers. How is the Fire Dragon Empire? Within the Heavenly Wolf Empire's palace, the Pope of the Blood Demon cult narrowed his eyes as he looked at the Heavenly Wolf Empire. The Heavenly Wolf Emperor had a fawning expression as he said, "My lord, don't worry. With 10 million soldiers, the Fire Dragon Empire is at our mercy. Moreover, the Fire Dragon Empire's rebel army is probably already on their way to the Yellow Springs. You have done well. You may leave." The Pope waved his hand at the Heavenly Wolf Emperor and closed his eyes. The Heavenly Wolf Emperor carefully glanced at the Pope and the black-clothed men behind the Pope. He then revealed a friendly smile to them. One had to know that he had spent a lot of effort on these people during this period of time. Otherwise, he would not have been able to develop so well in secret. Following which, the Heavenly Wolf Emperor retreated. "Tell me, how did this trash bribe you?" the Pope asked softly without opening his eyes after the Heavenly Wolf Emperor left. Chapter 412. Stand up and speak. The hierarch said softly with his eyes closed. The men in black hesitated for a while before standing up. However, their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at the hierarch. "You've helped him subdue quite a number of factions, right?" the hierarch asked with his eyes still closed. "You know that I hate being deceived. Did you really think that your plan was flawless?" "We were wrong." Hearing the hierarch's words, everyone immediately knelt down in fear, not daring to raise their heads. "Do you know why I didn't say so earlier?" "We don't know." Hearing the hierarch's question, the men looked at each other and hurriedly answered. They didn't understand. They thought that they had done it secretly, but the hierarch didn't leave the palace every day. How did he know? Because the Fire Dragon Empire isn't as simple as you think. Moreover, the Celestial Wolf Kingdom is still too weak. That's why I allowed it to develop. The Celestial Wolf King is an ambitious fellow, but he's brainless. His own army has already been wiped out, but he's still so arrogant. The hierarch said slowly with his eyes closed. "What? Are you sure, hierarch?" The men in black were in disbelief when they heard that the Celestial Wolf Kingdom's army had been wiped out. The hierarch suddenly let out a dissatisfied sound. The men in black immediately knew that they had committed a grave sin. They hurriedly begged for mercy. "We didn't dare to question you, hierarch. Please spare us." The Holy Blood Demon Church was originally a demonic sect of vicious people, and the hierarch was able to become the leader of such a sect. Although the hierarch looked harmonious on the surface, the hierarch's ruthlessness was enough to make their hair stand on end. However, they soon felt a lingering fear. Why was the hierarch so resourceful? It was as if there was nothing he didn't know. Now that they thought about it, it was fortunate that they hadn't done anything wrong to the Holy Blood Demon Church. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Go and help the Celestial Wolf King. Kill Yin Long for me." The hierarch suddenly waved his hand. Although they felt that it was a waste of their talents, they didn't dare to disobey the hierarch's orders. Your subordinates will take their leave. The few men in black stood up shakily and cautiously left the room. After the men in black left the room, the hierarch suddenly opened his eyes. You're still useful for now. Once you are done, you will die. His personality was that his subordinates had to obey him unconditionally. These people actually dared to secretly collude with the Tianlang heavenly monarch behind his back. This had already touched his bottom line. So these people only had one path, which was death. Where did the host of the heavenly Een spirit run off to? Why hasn't he appeared yet? An impatient expression appeared on the sect leader's face. I hope you don't make me wait too long. Otherwise, I'll make you feel that even death is a luxury. A red blood mist appeared in the sect leader's eyes, and the entire room was filled with killing intent. All the flower pots, decorations, tables, chairs, and benches in the room began to shake. The sect leader abruptly withdrew his killing intent. Bang, bang, bang. All the items in the room instantly turned into dust. In the main hall, the Tianlang heavenly monarch looked at the men in black and carefully asked, "My lords, what do you want me to do? Tell me, and I will definitely do it." At the same time, the Tianlang heavenly monarch gave a look, and immediately, dozens of budding beauties rushed out from outside the hall and began to dance. "Get out of here!" One of the men in black roared angrily. This. The beauties were really frightened by the man in black's roar. They lowered their heads in fear and didn't dare to speak. "My lord, what's wrong? Did I not receive you well?" The sudden anger of the man in black startled the Tianlang heavenly monarch. He didn't understand what was going on. The Tianlang heavenly monarch cautiously looked at the angry man in black. "Let me ask you, how is the progress of your Tianlang heavenly monarch?" The man in black glanced at the Tianlang heavenly monarch with disappointment. "Rest assured, my lord, rest assured, my ass. Your Tianlang heavenly monarch has already been destroyed. Don't you know?" Without waiting for the Tianlang heavenly monarch to finish speaking, the man in black smashed the dragon throne and angrily said, "Impossible. My Tianlang heavenly monarch has 3 million soldiers. How could they be destroyed? My lord must have made a mistake." The Tianlang heavenly monarch had a look of disbelief. "Send someone to investigate yourself, idiot." The man in black shook his head and looked at the Tianlang heavenly monarch with disgust. Now, behind the sect leader's back, they were playing tricks with the Tianlang heavenly monarch. Now that the sect leader had found out, they didn't know how the sect leader would punish them. After all, the sect leader was vicious and merciless. Therefore, the man in black felt restless. The more he looked at the Tianlang heavenly monarch, the more disgusted he felt. The Tianlang heavenly monarch was also unhappy. A few days ago, everything was fine. How could it be that in such a short time, the sect leader had become a different person? But at this moment, he was still skeptical. After all, he had 3 million soldiers and a bunch of martial spirit level generals. Not to mention the Fire Dragon Empire that he didn't care about. Even a kingdom of the same level could be swept away. How could such a powerful army be annihilated without a sound? "Men, contact Shawshank for me and ask him about the situation." The Tianlang heavenly monarch ordered one of his men. "Sir, please be patient. There should be news soon." "My Tianlang heavenly monarch can't be destroyed," the Tianlang heavenly monarch said with a smile. The man in black glanced at the Tianlang heavenly monarch and ignored him. He believed that as long as the sect leader said it, it would never be false. In the evening, the Tianlang heavenly monarch finally received the news. When he heard it, his expression changed greatly. "How can this be? What are Shawshank and Yang Wang doing? They destroyed my 3 million soldiers. They should be executed." The Tianlang heavenly monarch was furious when he heard the report from his spy. "Your Majesty, the 2 generals have been executed," the spy said anxiously. "It's just a duchy. Where did the expert come from?" The Tianlang heavenly monarch's heart was bleeding. Those were martial spirit experts. Killing one of them was like digging out his heart. Moreover, Shawshank and Yang Wang were the most talented generals he had recruited. They had the highest chance of breaking through to martial honor. But now both of them have been killed. Get out of here. The Tian Lang, heavenly monarch, waved his hand with a gloomy face. His 3 million soldiers had been destroyed in an instant. He was deeply shocked and could not recover for a long time. At the same time, it made him want to kill the Fire Dragon Empire. If he had only wanted to tease the Fire Dragon Empire at the beginning, now he had no choice but to take it seriously. Fire Dragon Empire, if I don't destroy you, I'm not human. The Tian Lang, heavenly monarch, clenched his fists and roared in anger. Chapter 4:13. Sirs, what do you think? I'm willing to do my best. The Tian Lang dynasty's ruler bowed before the black-clothed men. How many soldiers have you gathered recently? One of the black-clothed men asked. 10 million. The Tian Lang dynasty's ruler replied. The black-clothed men frowned with dissatisfaction. I want to hear the truth. Don't lie to me. 20 million. The Tian Lang dynasty's ruler had no choice but to reveal everything. Even the black-clothed men's expressions changed when they heard this number. How long had it been? He had secretly gathered 20 million soldiers. The black-clothed men secretly clicked their tongues. Just as their leader had said, the Tian Lang dynasty's ruler was very ambitious. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to gather so many soldiers in such a short period of time. I want you to mobilize the entire army and march towards the Fire Dragon Empire. We will support you. The black-clothed men said directly. What? The Tian Lang dynasty's ruler was a little reluctant when he heard that he was going to mobilize the entire army. However, when he thought of his Tian Lang dynasty's annihilation, he was filled with anger. He immediately nodded and said, Don't worry, sirs. I will go and gather them now. Great General, we have subdued one. 8 million enemy soldiers and killed one. 2 million enemy soldiers. After a day of battle, all the generals in the army were a little tired. However, the joy on their faces was self-evident. Great General, there are too many captives. We should handle them carefully. Moreover, we don't know if the Tian Lang kingdom will be attacked by the enemy. Zhao Yun said with a worried face. That is a problem. Guan Yu frowned. It was obviously unrealistic to kill all the captives. However, they couldn't just keep them alive. The Fire Dragon Empire couldn't afford the expenses. Most importantly, if the Celestial Wolf Kingdom were to attack again, then these people might riot at any moment. Soldiers, what do you suggest? Guan Yu swept his gaze across the crowd and asked. Great General, we should temporarily imprison the captives. Select those who are not native to the Tian Lang Kingdom and persuade them to join us. Then, we should divide them into different units. As for those who are loyal to the Tian Lang Kingdom, we should kill them directly. Otherwise, they will only be a disaster. All right, I will leave this matter to General Yu. I would like General Cheng to accompany me in dealing with this matter. Yu Fei said. This Cheng Yaojin was famous for his ability to swindle people. He would definitely be very useful in recruiting captives. Agreed. Guan Yu agreed immediately. Where is Zhao Yun? Guan Yu looked at Zhao Yun. Zhao Yun quickly stood up and said, This general is here. I order you to lead 2 million soldiers to help Ran Min and Dian Wei defeat the enemy as soon as possible. This general obeys. Guan Yu frowned as he watched the crowd leave. He knew that the trouble before him was just an appetizer. The expert behind the Celestial Wolf Kingdom was the biggest problem that the Fire Dragon Empire had to face. At the same time, he was anxiously waiting. Why hadn't the expert sent by the Lord arrived yet? Moreover, he believed that the Celestial Wolf Kingdom would soon make their next move. Therefore, he had to quickly solve the problem in front of him. The first reason was because of these captives, and the second reason was that the enemy forces of the two kingdoms had yet to be dealt with. However, he didn't dare to leave. He was afraid that the experts behind the Celestial Wolf Kingdom would arrive as soon as he left. Yao spent a few days in the spiritual medicine sect with the two girls. It was rare for him to have a few days of peace. Yihao, do you have any more chocolate? I ran out of chocolate. Yihao sat by the lake, and the two girls were playing with each other. Mu Qingyu ran over and squatted in front of Yihao. Be careful not to get fat. Yi Hao immediately exchanged a pile of chocolate. Mu Qingyu happily took it. Moi. Mu Qingyu kissed Yi Hao on the face. Seeing Mu Qingyu smiling happily, Yi Hao was very pleased. This was because Mu Qingyu wouldn't show such a cold expression in front of him. Should I do that to the two girls? A wicked thought appeared in Yi Hao's mind, but he immediately threw it to the back of his mind. Sunba should be here by now. Yi Hao looked at the sky and thought, oh, isn't this great sect leader's son? You came just in time. You're in such a hurry to join our spiritual medicine sect. At this moment, Sunba led a group of disciples and elders to the outer sect of the spiritual medicine sect. The person who welcomed them was only a small elder of the outer sect. At this moment, he was looking at Sunba and the others provocatively. Where's Zhao Xiong? Sunba understood that these people were trying to intimidate him. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice, how dare you call our sect leader by his name? At this moment, an outer sect disciple pointed at Sunba and shouted, you're courting death. Wang Chong was impatient. How could he tolerate such humiliation? He wanted to deal with the disciple who spoke rudely. Second brother, you can't. Sunba immediately stopped him. After all, this was the other party's territory. If something happened, he wouldn't be able to control the situation. Sect leader, this little bastard dares to point at your nose. I can't take this lying down. Wang Chong said angrily to Sunba, his body filled with killing intent. You blind thing. This is the future elder of our spiritual medicine sect. How can you be so blind? Seeing Sunba and Wang Chong being humiliated, the outer sect elder sneered in his heart. His tone didn't have the slightest hint of blame. Instead, his eyes were filled with praise. Yes, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I didn't recognize Elder Sun, the disciple quickly said to Sunba. His face was filled with mockery. There wasn't a trace of apology. You guys, how dare you? Wang Chong felt like his lungs were about to explode. These two were obviously trying to find trouble with him. Where's my boss? Pan Ji scratched his head and asked. Sunba's heart tightened. Because he didn't have the confidence to fight the spiritual medicine sect, he wanted to bring Pan Ji along. But how could Pan Ji follow him? He insisted on waiting for his boss. Sunba could only lie to him and say that his boss was at the spiritual medicine sect. Only then did Pan Ji follow him. That, Sunba was about to explain when the spiritual medicine sect disciple looked at Pan Ji mockingly. He wanted to show off his strength to the beast monster sect. Where did this fly come from? Too annoying. After saying that, the disciple gathered his martial strength and hit Pan Ji's chest. Pan Ji's face flashed with impatience. He grabbed the disciple's hand and asked in a low voice, What are you doing? You idiot, let go of my hand. The disciple was shocked. He didn't expect Pan Ji to use so much strength. He couldn't help but speak angrily. You dare to scold me. Pan Ji was instantly anxious. His eyes were as wide as copper bells. The disciple was actually frightened by Pan Ji for a moment. But before he could react, Pan Ji's fist landed on his head. His head instantly exploded like a watermelon. Chapter 414. Sunba, how dare you? You actually brought people to kill my spirit medicine sect disciple. A martial honorable pointed at Sunba's nose and cursed. Sunba was at a loss for words. He didn't expect Pan Ji's temper to be so explosive. But it was also the spirit medicine sect disciples' fault for courting death. He could have scolded anyone, but he actually dared to scold Pan Ji, not to mention others. Even he had to instruct people to carefully serve Pan Ji. But no matter what, Pan Ji had helped them kill many magical beasts. Their beast monster sect was indebted to him. It's your spirit medicine sect that didn't manage your disciples well. They deserve to die for speaking rudely. Sunba coldly snorted. Even if they deserve to die, it's not your beast monster sect's turn to attack. At this moment, the atmosphere was extremely tense. The elders of the spirit medicine sect seemed to have been lying in ambush. In an instant, they all rushed out and surrounded the people of the beast monster sect. Sunba's expression was not good. If they really fought, the beast monster sect would be doomed. I was the one who killed them. If you have the ability, come and find me. It has nothing to do with them. Pangaea looked at the elders of the spirit medicine sect with contempt. All right, elders, listen to my orders. Take this child down. An elder waved his arm, and all the elders immediately surrounded Pangaea. Eat my sword. An elder held a rank 6 spirit weapon and stabbed it at Pangaea's chest. It seemed like he didn't want to leave him any way out. He wanted to kill Pangaea to intimidate the beast monster sect. Be careful. Sunba and the others were surrounded by a group of people. Moreover, they had to protect their disciples, so they could only shout anxiously. Scrap metal, you still want to hurt me? Pangaea didn't dodge or dodge. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the rank 6 spirit weapon. Everyone was shocked. Could this person really be a fool? He actually grabbed a rank 6 spirit weapon with his bare hands. How reckless was he? Just as the elders sneered and wanted to see the sword shatter Pangaea's arm with a cracking sound, the elder's sword that was stabbing at Pangaea broke from the middle, and the sword in Pangaea's hand turned into iron powder. The martial power erupting from the long sword seemed to be unable to cause the slightest bit of harm to Pangaea at all. That wasn't the end of it. The elder holding the sword was so shocked by what he saw that he forgot to run, and Pangaea punched him in the head. The crowd was in an uproar. What kind of monster was this? Why was a martial honorable holding a rank 6 spiritual weapon like a child holding a plastic sword in front of him, unable to withstand a single blow? At this moment, many of the elders began to doubt their lives. Great! The beast monster sect disciples shouted excitedly under Sunba's lead. Sunba felt that bringing Pangaea along this time was the best idea. If he hadn't brought Pangaea along, who knew what kind of humiliation the beast monster sect would have received from the spirit potion sect? Seeing the excited Sunba, Wang Chong gulped down a mouthful of saliva and reminded softly, Sectmaster, don't forget that you're still lying to him. If he can't find his boss, hearing Wang Chong's words, the smile on Sunba's face froze. He looked at Pangaea, who was killing everyone in front of him. Those arrogant elders seemed to have become little chicks. As long as they landed in front of Pangaea, their heads would explode with a single punch. Seeing this, Sunba couldn't help but shrink his neck. Why don't we run? A disciple advised softly. Run. Sunba smiled bitterly. He had made an oath with Zhao Xiong. If he ran, the consequences would be unimaginable. Stop. At this moment, a young man's voice rang out. Beside the young man were 2 goddess-like beauties. Commander Yi, save me. The spirit potion sect elder was crying for his parents after being beaten up by Pangaea. When he heard this voice, it was as if he had grasped at a life-saving straw. He loudly begged Yi Hao for help. What a strange young man. Why isn't there the slightest fluctuation of martial power? Guo Shuefu frowned when she saw that Pangaea didn't have the slightest fluctuation of martial power. It seems that Pangaea is indeed unusual. Yi Hao thought to himself when he heard Guo Shuefu's words. After all, Guo Shuefu was the young mistress of the Saint Class Force. If she said that Pangaea was strange, then Pangaea must be really strange. However, Yi Hao was also curious as to why Pangaea was with Sunba. What's going on? Yi Hao asked in a low voice. Sunba and Wang Chong looked at Yi Hao cautiously. After all, the only people who could make the spirit potion sect behave in such a manner could only be the people from the Bishing sacred dynasty. Sir, Sunba made up his mind. He was ready to risk everything. However, before he could say anything, Yi Hao interrupted him. Speak. Yi Hao pointed at an elder of the spirit potion sect. No matter what, he had to avenge those who dared to bully his people. This was what Yi Hao was thinking. However, the others didn't think so. The people of the spirit potion sect looked at Sunba mockingly. Sunba was interrupted and his face turned livid. However, the other party had a strong background and he couldn't do anything about it. Sunba guessed that the beast monster sect was doomed this time. Sectmaster this. Seeing such unfair treatment, Wang Chong was also angry, but there was nothing he could do. The elder of the spirit potion sect looked at Sunba sinisterly and pushed all the blame to the Beast Monster sect. He said that the Beast Monster sect was arrogant and dared to act so presumptuously after knowing that the Bishing's sacred dynasty and Gdanzan's envoys were here. They didn't put Yi Hao in their eyes at all. Hearing the elders' words, the elders of the Spirit Potion sect snickered. If it was a normal person, they definitely wouldn't be able to endure it and would definitely attack the Beast Monster sect. Obviously, they were happy to see Yi Hao attacking the Beast Monster sect. After all, if Sun Ba really joined the Spirit Potion sect, it would definitely affect their status. Therefore, the elders of the Spirit Potion sect were united against a common enemy. Sir, we definitely didn't. Sun Ba was afraid that Yi Hao would misunderstand and hurriedly explained. There's no need to say more. All of you kneel down. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Sun Ba and the others' hearts fell to the bottom. On the other hand, the people of the Spirit Potion sect were so arrogant that their noses were about to reach the sky. But when they saw the direction Yi Hao was pointing at, they were all stunned. Sir, are you sure? The elder of the Spirit Potion sect swallowed his saliva and asked in disbelief. Do I need you to question my words? Yi Hao directly slapped him on the face. Immediately, a clear sound of a slap was heard. Seeing the elder who was slapped, the elder's cheeks instantly puffed up and they looked at each other in dismay. Wang Chong, why do I feel that Commander Yi isn't helping the Spirit Potion sect, but helping us instead? Sun Ba rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Wang Chong was also in a daze at this time. I also feel that way. We have nothing to do with the Bishing sacred dynasty. Could it be that the Spirit Potion sect offended Commander Yi? Wang Chong guessed. Chapter 415. All of you kneel down. As soon as Yi Hao's voice fell, nearly 100 guards from the Baisheng sacred dynasty pulled out their weapons and surrounded the elders. The elders were covered in cold sweat. However, facing so many martial honorables, Emperor Wu, they couldn't resist the pressure and knelt down. Commander Yi, what's going on? Zhao Xiong, who originally wanted to leave the Beast Monster sect alone for a few days, couldn't help but run over when he heard the news. What do you care about what I do? Yi Hao looked coldly at Zhao Xiong. Zhao Xiong cursed in his heart. Damn it, these are the elders of the spiritual medicine sect. How can I ignore them when they're all kneeling in front of the sect? However, when he met Yi Hao's gaze, Zhao Xiong couldn't hold on for more than a second. He immediately smiled and said, How would I dare to interfere with Sir's matters? I'm just asking. Zhao Xiong said while wiping his cold sweat. I heard that the two sects are going to compete. Yi Hao asked. Zhao Xiong quickly nodded. That's right. Then let's begin. What? Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone looked at Yi Hao. Did he have to be so overbearing? The two sects had already decided on the time of the competition, and he changed it just like that. However, no one dared to refute him. Zhao Xiong was full of confidence in his disciples, so changing the time didn't matter to him. At most, he wanted the Beast Monster sect to quickly fall into his arms. On the other hand, the Beast Monster sect wasn't so calm because they had no confidence in their disciples at all. Moreover, the disciples they brought were all third-rate trash that couldn't be brought to the stage at all. It wasn't that they didn't want to bring out good disciples, but they didn't have any. System, I found the disciples of the Beast Monster sect. It's those 10 people. Yi Hao casually pointed at the 10 disciples behind Sun Ba. However, Yi Hao didn't get a response from the system. Didn't it say that he could complete the task and annex the spiritual medicine sect after finding 10 disciples? Did he have to complete the competition? Yi Hao knew that it wouldn't be that easy to obtain the mysterious reward. It seemed that his cheating method wouldn't work. However, since he had already cheated, Yi Hao would cheat to the end. Please call your disciples out. That's right, it can't be changed. Yi Hao said softly. Soon, the disciples from both sects was sent out. In the end, it was clear who was better. Ignoring the disciples who were refining pills, the 5 disciples of the spiritual medicine sect who were participating in the martial arts competition were all martial saints. Looking at the Beast Monster sect disciples, there wasn't a single martial saint. There were only 3 martial spirits, and 2 of them were martial kings. Looking at the two women's strange gazes, Yi Hao blushed with shame. He wished he could slap Sun Ba's head and ask, "Are you here to be funny?" However, when he thought of his promise to Sun Ba, saying that he was here to look for a disciple, how could he have the time? Hell. Sun Ba, look, is there a need to continue competing? You stinky fish and shrimps, you're just sinning yourself to death, Zhao Xiong said with a sneer. Sun Ba's face turned red. Indeed, these disciples couldn't be brought out, but what could he do? Moreover, he didn't know where his master was. Did he forget about the beast monster sect? Where could he find disciples? Next, we will begin the pill refining competition. The disciples of the two sects will compete one-on-one. The one with better pills will win. In the end, the side with more people will win. An elder of the spiritual medicine sect said. At this moment, 10 pill furnaces were placed in the square. There was a disciple standing in front of each furnace. At this moment, the disciples of the beast monster sect were all nervous and uneasy. They didn't have the slightest confidence in the competition. There's no need to be nervous. Calm down. Sun Ba couldn't help but say when he saw the disciples' expressions. Sun Ba, your disciples aren't good. Refining pills requires calmness. Otherwise, the furnace will explode. It seems that your teaching isn't good enough. Do you know that among my disciples, there are 2 rank 5 alchemists and the rest are all outstanding rank 4 alchemists? How about your disciples? Let's hear it. Sun Ba couldn't help but blush because the disciples of the beast monster sect were all rank 3 alchemists. There was only 1 rank for alchemist. Sun Ba couldn't help but say, Zhao Xiong, don't go too far. Bang! Just as Sun Ba finished speaking, a pill furnace exploded. Zhao Xiong didn't even look as he mocked Sun Ba. Look, what did I say? The furnace exploded at the beginning. Such a person still has the face to participate in the competition. AI, this is simply misleading the students. Zhao Xiong sighed and said to Sun Ba mockingly, Sect Master Zhao, please look carefully. Wang Cheng couldn't stand it anymore and said, Look carefully, what is it? Zhao Xiong turned his head and looked in the direction of the beast monster sect. He found that their 5 disciples were still refining pills. How is this possible? Zhao Xiong looked as if he had seen a ghost. He looked at his disciples and found that one of them was already standing to the side, misleading the disciples. Wang Cheng glanced at Zhao Xiong and laughed loudly. You? At this moment, Zhao Xiong looked as if he had eaten a dead fly. His face was red and he couldn't speak. This was simply slapping his own face. But he couldn't understand. These 5 disciples were his trump cards, and each of them had outstanding alchemy skills. How could they make such a low-level mistake? Bang! In the end, another furnace exploded. Zhao Xiong looked over and his body trembled because the one who had exploded was still someone from the spirit medicine sect. TSK. As expected of the spirit medicine sect. If you want your furnace to explode, my beast monster sect really can't compare. Wang Cheng continued to sneer. The spirit medicine sect's furnace had exploded twice in a row, allowing him to vent his anger. Moreover, the spirit medicine sect's furnace had exploded twice in a row, giving the beast monster sect a glimmer of hope. As long as the beast monster sect's furnace didn't explode, those 2 disciples would win. But it was still very uncertain. As long as the 3 disciples of the spirit medicine sect successfully refined pills, the beast monster sect's chances of winning were very slim. Please don't explode your furnaces again, my little ancestors. The series of events had made Zhao Xiong dizzy. He clenched his fists and his palms were covered in sweat. His initial arrogance had disappeared without a trace. Don't you feel that there is something strange about this? Although the spirit medicine sect's furnace explosion was a good thing for him, as a rank 4 alchemist, it was impossible for them to make such a low-level mistake, especially at such a crucial moment. The smile on Wang Cheng's face disappeared, and he frowned. Could it be that Zhao Xiong did it on purpose to humiliate us? Chapter 416. What's going on? Why did 2 disciples explode in a row? Shouldn't this kind of mistake appear in the beast monster sect? Why did it appear in my spiritual medicine sect? Could it be that the sect master deliberately arranged it to humiliate the spiritual medicine sect? Hearing the discussion of the elders behind him, Zhao Xiong's head was filled with black lines. If only I deliberately arranged it. The main thing is that I didn't know either. What's going on? Zhao Xiong's heart was burning with anxiety, but he couldn't say it out loud. At this moment, he even had the mood to cry. Please don't, Peng. The furnace exploded before Zhao Xiong finished speaking. The sound of another furnace exploding could be heard. At this moment, the elders of the spiritual medicine sect instantly collapsed, and they all looked at Zhao Xiong in confusion. At this moment, Zhao Xiong was also angry. A total of 5 disciples and 3 furnaces exploded. If there wasn't a problem here, even a fool wouldn't believe it. What the hell is going on? The 3 of you get down here. Seeing his efforts go down the drain, Zhao Xiong could no longer control the anger in his heart and directly shouted, "We pay our respects to the sect master." The 3 disciples nervously walked in front of Zhao Xiong. Tell me, what the hell is going on? The 3 disciples secretly glanced at Yi Hao and said, "Sect master, please calm down. It's our own mistake." Bullshit. Mistake? Do you think I'm a fool? All of you are rank 4 alchemists. How could you make a mistake? Zhao Xiong was furious. It's really our mistake. Sect master, please punish us. The 3 disciples insisted that it was their own mistake, and Zhao Xiong had no other choice. Get down here and be grounded for a year. Zhao Xiong impatiently waved his hand. Sect master, we seem to have one. Wang Chong said in disbelief. It seems so. Even now, Sun Ba didn't know what was going on. But the anger that erupted from Zhao Xiong couldn't be faked. In the end, the 2 rank 5 alchemists of the spiritual medicine sect successfully refined pills and crushed their opponents. As for the 5 disciples of the beast monster sect, they all refined pills, but they were all low-grade pills, and their quality wasn't worth mentioning. However, 3 of their opponents' furnaces exploded, allowing the 3 of them to easily win the competition. Beast monster sect wins this round. Yi Hao waved his hand, and a guard stood out. My lord, this. Zhao Xiong looked at Yi Hao anxiously, hoping that Yi Hao could help him. However, Yi Hao was chatting with the 2 girls and didn't pay any attention to him. Humph. The spirit potion sect will definitely win the next round. Seeing Yi Hao ignoring him and the result of the alchemy competition, he became even more dissatisfied with Yi Hao. However, losing in alchemy here did not mean that he did not have a chance. There was still a martial arts competition coming up. On his side, if he wanted Emperor Wu, he had Emperor Wu. If he wanted martial venerables, he had martial venerables. What did Beast Monster Sect have? The strongest was just martial spirit realm. Even if all of them came at him at once, he reckoned that any one of his disciples would be able to crush them easily. Zhao Xiong looked at Yi Hao with dissatisfaction and couldn't help but clench his fists tightly. He thought to himself, don't force me. At this moment, Sun Ba and Wang Chong felt that winning this competition was not realistic. Wang Chong glanced at Zhao Xiong and asked Sun Ba in a low voice, Sect Master, did you bribe those 3 people? I wanted to, but I really didn't. Sun Ba felt as if he was in a dream. At the beginning, he thought that coming to the Spirit Potion sect was probably just a process. In the end, his Beast Monster sect would definitely lose. Or his Beast Monster sect would be crushed and humiliated by the Spirit Potion sect. In any case, he had thought of all the bad outcomes, but he didn't expect Beast Monster sect to win so easily. However, seeing Zhao Xiong's face filled with anger, Sun Ba's heart tightened. He couldn't help but start to worry about the safety of the disciples. Sect Master, we won. Why are you frowning? Wang Chong saw Sun Ba's expression suddenly turn bad and couldn't help but ask in confusion. We lost the pill competition. Zhao Xiong probably won't let us have an easy time. Sun Ba said in a deep voice. Then let's just give up. At most, we'll just fight to a draw. Wang Chong said after thinking for a moment. Yes, this is the best plan. If these disciples were sent to the competition, it would be an act of suicide. Therefore, Sun Ba agreed to Wang Chong's words. Commander Yi, we forfeit the competition. Sun Ba and Wang Chong stood out and said, You want to forfeit? Dream on. You're dreaming. Commander Yi, you definitely can't agree to this. Zhao Xiong snorted coldly. He knew that Sun Ba was afraid. The more afraid Sun Ba was, the more he wouldn't let this matter go. No, the competition hasn't started yet. How can you forfeit? Commander Yi, you definitely can't agree to their request. The elders of the Spirit Potion sect began to clamor. After all, losing the pill competition and being defeated by the Beast Monster sect was a loss of face for the Spirit Potion sect. Now that they finally had a chance to regain their face, how could they let it go? Yi Hao naturally knew what Sun Ba was thinking in his heart. But in order to complete the mission, he had to say, the competition will continue. Hearing Yi Hao's words, the Spirit Potion sect was immediately happy. This Yi Hao had finally done something that was in line with their wishes. As for the Beast Monster sect, they were all in low spirits. After all, even a 3-year-old child could tell who was strong and who was weak. The strongest disciple sent out by the Beast Monster sect probably couldn't even defeat the weakest disciple with one hand. If they sent it up, wouldn't it be obvious that they were being humiliated? Sect Master, let's go. The disciples of the Beast Monster sect gritted their teeth and said, even if we die, we can't lose face for the Beast Monster sect and the Lord. Another disciple said, I just don't know if the Lord can see this scene. Watching the disciples of the Beast Monster sect one by one, they jumped onto the stage with a tragic expression. Zhao Xiong couldn't help but laugh loudly. What a bunch of young talents. Sun Ba, look, even your disciples are braver than you. But I don't know if they'll still be so courageous when they fight later. Zhao Xiong, don't go too far. Sun Ba gritted his teeth and said, Spirit Potion sect disciples, listen to my orders. In a while, beat them to death. Zhao Xiong said viciously. You. Sun Ba was furious, but there was nothing he could do. Lord, where are you? Please save these children. Sun Ba prayed in his heart. Of course, he knew that it was useless, but he had no choice. Wait a moment. Yi Hao suddenly said, what other orders does Commander Yi have? Zhao Xiong smiled and looked at Yi Hao. I don't think this fight is interesting. Why don't we play something more interesting? Yi Hao yawned and said. Zhao Xiong frowned. He didn't understand what other tricks Yi Hao wanted to play, but he was also curious. Commander Yi, please speak. What is interesting? Yi Hao thought for a moment and said with a smile, let's play rock, paper, scissors. Chapter 417. Commander Yi, what is rock, paper, scissors? Rock, paper, scissors is... Yi Hao quickly explained the rules of rock, paper, scissors. After listening to him, everyone was speechless. Master, you're my biological master, okay? This is a matter that will decide the fate of the two sects, but you want us to play rock, paper, scissors? Can you be more childish? Everyone present looked at each other, not knowing what to say. The two girls covered their mouths and laughed. They really didn't understand how Yi Hao came up with such a strange game. After hearing Yi Hao's words, Sun Ba and the others were speechless, but then they were overjoyed. Because this way, at least they relied on luck. Even if they lost, their disciples' lives wouldn't be harmed. Sun Ba and Wang Chong looked at each other and said at the same time, the Beast Monster sect agrees with Master's decision. Sect Master, this is too childish. You can't do this. If you use this method to decide the rise and fall of our spiritual medicine sect, people will laugh their heads off. Sect Master, quickly make a decision. The elders of the spiritual medicine sect looked at Zhao Xiong anxiously in disgust. Zhao Xiong, don't tell me you don't dare. Wang Chong looked at Zhao Xiong mockingly. At this time, Wang Chong had to provoke Zhao Xiong. After all, it was obvious that the spiritual medicine sect had the upper hand in a martial arts competition. However, rock, paper, scissors was different. It depended on luck. Do you think such an inferior method of provocation will work? Zhao Xiong sneered at Wang Chong, his eyes full of disdain. However, Yi Hao's words made him speechless. It doesn't matter if it works or not. My words have to be effective. As if they had discussed it, the guards of the Bishing sacred dynasty all reached for their weapons. It was obvious that they were threatening Zhao Xiong. When Zhao Xiong saw this, he gnashed his teeth in hatred. He wanted to bite Yi Hao to death, but he couldn't do anything to Yi Hao. Zhao Xiong, do you agree or not? Yi Hao looked at Zhao Xiong with a smile. Zhao Xiong looked at Yi Hao's smile and felt a little flustered. However, he still pretended to be calm and said, Sir, you are meddling too much. This is not good. What he said was right, but so what? Yi Hao was still smiling as he looked at Zhao Xiong. Does Commander Yi really think that the spiritual medicine sect is a pushover? Zhao Xiong said in a low voice. The fury in his heart had already spread to his face. You're the one being bullied. What can you do about it? Yi Hao stood up and looked at Zhao Xiong. He didn't care about Zhao Xiong's anger at all. Zhao Xiong hadn't expected Yi Hao to be so domineering. He pointed his finger at Yi Hao and said, You've gone too far. The spirit medicine sect is not participating in this competition. Don't. Sect leader, doesn't that mean we'll just admit defeat? Sovereign, please reconsider. As soon as Zhao Xiong finished speaking, all the elders panicked and hurriedly advised. If the spirit medicine sect lost, the spirit medicine sect would be merged with the beast monster sect in the future. How would they have a good life then? In other words, the spirit medicine sect's painstaking efforts would all be given away and become a wedding dress for the beast monster sect. Admit defeat? Ridiculous. I'm going to compete today, Zhao Xiong said arrogantly. He was going to go all out today. All right, since you like to compete, I'll give you a chance. Compete with me. If you win, I'll turn around and leave. If you lose, you know the consequences. All right, that's what you said. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhao Xiong squinted his eyes and looked at Yi Hao viciously. Sovereign, you can't. Everyone was shocked. Yi Hao was a member of the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty. No matter if they won or lost, it wouldn't benefit them at all. Get lost. I've made up my mind. Zhao Xiong couldn't care less. He just wanted to teach Yi Hao a lesson and tell Yi Hao that he couldn't be fearless just because he had the backing of the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty. 9 carving slash. Zhao Xiong waved his hand and 2 axes appeared in his hands. Zhao Xiong's aura was monstrous. The sovereign seemed to have become stronger again. The elders of the spirit medicine sect looked at Zhao Xiong with admiration. Then, Zhao Xiong attacked Yi Hao. Get lost. As soon as Yi Hao's voice fell, Zhao Xiong was sent flying while Yi Hao was still standing in the same spot as if he hadn't moved at all. Yi Hao sneered in his heart. This Zhao Xiong really didn't know what was good for him. Even an 8th Order Martial Emperor wasn't his match, let alone a piece of trash like Zhao Xiong. Oh my god, he's so strong. No wonder he's from the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty. Sun Ba and Wang Chong looked at Yi Hao in awe. However, the more they acted like this, the more confused Sun Ba and Wang Chong were. Didn't the spirit medicine sect say that the envoy from the Bai Sheng sacred dynasty was invited by them? Why did it seem like they weren't helping the spirit medicine sect, but the beast monster sect? At this time, the elders of the spirit medicine sect immediately ran to Zhao Xiong. As a result, the elders' expressions became strange and ugly. The sovereign is dead. Suddenly, one of the elders said. Hearing the elders' words, everyone was aghast. Zhao Xiong, who was full of fighting spirit just now, didn't even have a chance to retaliate and died just like that. How powerful was Yi Hao? Looking at Zhao Xiong's corpse, the elders should have taken revenge for him. However, everyone looked at Yi Hao and thought about how they didn't see how Yi Hao attacked. Who would dare to attack? Who else is not convinced? Let's fight. All of you. Yi Hao continued to provoke them. Since you don't want to talk, let's continue to play rock, paper, scissors. What do you think? It seemed that the Beast Monster sect had to win the competition to complete his mission. Therefore, Yi Hao was very interested in that special reward. Therefore, Yi Hao wanted to complete the mission and go through the motions. If this Zhao Xiong obediently cooperated with him, he wouldn't have ended up dead. We also feel that fighting and killing is meaningless. Let's play rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors, just hearing this name, it's high-end and classy. It's so vulgar to play this. Commander Yi, hurry up. I can't wait any longer. Hurry up and play. At this time, the elders of the spirit medicine sect all had a 180-degree change in attitude in order to survive. Soon, the martial arts competition became rock, paper, scissors. The final result was obvious. How could the disciples of the spirit medicine sect dare to win? Before the competition started, they all admitted defeat. This time, we seem to have really won. Sun Ba and Wang Chong glanced at each other in disbelief. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never have thought that the Beast Monster sect would win the competition so dramatically. In other words, the Beast Monster sect was no longer a spirit-level faction and had become a supreme-level faction. Thank you, Lord. Without thinking too much, Sun Ba and Wang Chong immediately thanked Yi Hao. You lied to me. Where's my boss? Suddenly, Pan Jie exploded. He grabbed Sun Ba and Wang Chong with one hand each. Sun Ba and Wang Chong's expressions changed. They had actually ignored this fiend. Sun Ba and Wang Chong were both frightened. After all, with Pan Jie's temper, it could come out at any moment. Pan Jie, stop. Yi Hao suddenly spoke. Who are you? Pan Jie looked at Yi Hao with disdain and asked curiously, How do you know my name? Could it be that they knew each other? Sun Ba and Wang Chong seemed to have grabbed onto a life-saving straw as they looked at Yi Hao eagerly. I'll let you eat the barbecued meat. Yi Hao slapped Pan Jie's head. Seeing Yi Hao's action, everyone's expression suddenly changed. After all, everyone present had seen Pan Jie's abnormal strength. Everyone wanted to stay away from him, but Yi Hao actually dared to hit his head. Chapter 4:18. You dare to hit me? I'm angry. Pan Jie was stunned at first. Then, he flew into a rage and threw Sun Ba and Wang Chong out. Help! Sun Ba and Wang Chong were martial saints, but they couldn't control their bodies. Wang Chong shouted. Yi Hao's figure flashed, and he caught the two of them. He didn't expect this kid to have such a bad temper. Yi Hao smiled in his heart. Then he took out a leftover leg of a magical beast from the system space. Due to the frozen space, the leg was still steaming. Seeing the beast leg in Yi Hao's hand, everyone was stunned. They were about to fight. Why'd you take out a beast leg? Did you want to eat your fill before fighting? Most of them wanted to see who was stronger between Yi Hao and Pan Jie. Pan Jie was furious. Someone actually dared to hit his head. This touched his bottom line. He had to tear this person apart. Just as he was about to attack, a familiar fragrance wafted over. Pan Jie's eyes lit up, and he looked at the roasted meat in Yi Hao's hand. What? Do you still want to beat up boss? Yi Hao asked with a smile, holding the beast leg in his hand. Boss? Pan Jie frowned and sniffed the fragrance. This was the fragrance that had been in his dreams for half a year. He couldn't be wrong. Boss, it's really you. But Pan Jie was about to ask how Yi Hao became like this. But what welcomed him was a beast leg smashing toward his face. Pan Jie licked his lips and quickly caught it. He started chewing, completely forgetting to ask. Yi Hao looked at Pan Jie with a bitter smile. He was really a glutton. What was going on? Just a moment ago, it was as furious as a mad bear, and now it was bought over by a beast leg. Seeing Pan Jie hugging a beast leg and gnawing at it in a corner, everyone was speechless. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for completing the mission. You have received a special reward, a clue to the origin of life. Please collect the sect leader tokens of the Beast Monster sect and the Spiritual Medicine sect together. At this moment, the system notification that Yi Hao had been waiting for finally rang out. Hearing this special reward, Yi Hao was ecstatic. He didn't expect the special reward to be this. This was beyond his expectations. Sun Ba, come with me. There were too many people here. Yi Hao said to Sun Ba. Sun Ba was nervous. He didn't understand why Yi Hao was calling him. But looking at Yi Hao's back, Sun Ba gritted his teeth and followed. Sect Master. Wang Chong wanted to follow Sun Ba, but he was stopped by the guards of the Bishing Sacred Dynasty. As for Pan Jie, he only raised his head and glanced at Yi Hao's back before lowering his head again to gnaw on his beast leg. Everyone fell silent. No one understood why Yi Hao had called Sun Ba over. In the huge field, the sound of Pan Jie gnawing on the beast leg could be heard clearly. Mu Qingyu and Guo Xuefu stood together. Guo Xuefu frowned as she looked at Pan Jie, who was gnawing on the beast leg in the corner. Guo Xuefu thought for a moment and walked over. Are you a martial artist? Guoshuefu asked tentatively. Panjie raised his head and looked at Guoshuefu. He shook his head and said, I couldn't cultivate since I was young. My father told me that cultivating martial arts was useless to me. He didn't let me cultivate either. Hearing that Panjie had a father, Guoshuefu was shocked. She quickly asked, You have a father? Guoshuefu really couldn't imagine what kind of existence his father would be if his son was so powerful. She had to find some clues from Panjie, because such a person was too strange. She had never heard of such a person before. Of course, my father used to hunt often and roast meat for me, until one day, he said that he had something to do and left. Then I met Boss. Panjie ate the roasted meat and said vaguely. He didn't forget to add, Boss's roasted meat is even better than my father's. Guoshuefu blushed with shame. She didn't expect Yi Hao to use roasted meat to get such a strange little brother. Then how strong are you? Were you born with such strength? Panjie was someone who could casually pick up 2 martial honorables and make them unable to resist. If he was born with such strength, it would be unbelievable. How strong would his genes be? I don't know. I feel that my strength is getting stronger and stronger. As long as I eat, my strength will increase. Panjie shook his head. Moreover, the meat my father roasts can increase my strength even more. Guoshuefu asked a few more questions. However, Panjie was like a simple youth from the mountains. The things he said were useless. However, there was one thing that shocked Guoshuefu. Panjie said that he didn't use any strength to pick up Sun Ba and Wang Chong. Guoshuefu was overwhelmed with shock. If that was the case, then how strong would Panjie be? At the very least, it would be comparable to a martial emperor or even a martial saint. Thinking of this, Guoshuefu didn't dare to continue thinking. Was there really such a freak in the world? Other people could only reach this realm after painstakingly cultivating for days and months. He was born with such great strength. Moreover, he only needed to eat to increase his strength. If this person wasn't right in front of her, she probably wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. Moreover, she observed carefully and found that Panjie didn't have the slightest trace of lying. Seeing that Panjie was eating happily, but a 3-meter-long giant beast leg was almost completely eaten, Guoshuefu immediately took out a magical beast leg that Yi Hao roasted from her space and handed it to Panjie. Panjie immediately raised his head. His eyes were filled with stars. He threw the beast leg bone that he had finished eating to the side and happily took the beast leg that Guoshuefu handed over. Thank you, sister-in-law. Panjie blurted out. Guoshuefu's face instantly turned red. Hearing Panjie call Guoshuefu's sister-in-law, Mu Qingyu was a little unconvinced. She also took out a beast leg and handed it to Panjie. Panjie raised his head and looked at Mu Qingyu. He quickly took the beast leg and was overjoyed. He also said, Thank you, sister-in-law. Sun Ba followed Yi Hao to a place where there was no one around and lowered his head respectfully. Sir, what orders do you have for me? Where is your sect leader token? Show it to me. Yi Hao said directly. What? Sun Ba's expression changed. He looked at Yi Hao's back with a complicated look in his eyes. However, he immediately took out a token and handed it to Yi Hao. Yi Hao glanced at it. I want the real token. Sun Ba's expression changed. He wondered how Yi Hao knew that this was a fake token. Moreover, what kind of person was Yi Hao? One had to know that every generation of sect leaders had to remember the real token. Even if they had to risk their lives, they had to protect the token and not give it to anyone else. Although he didn't know what the token was used for, he didn't even think much of it. Chapter 419. Give it to me. Yi Hao suddenly shouted in a deep voice. At the same time, he secretly used the power of the mind control pill. Suddenly, Sun Ba's eyes became a little confused. He involuntarily took out the sect master token and handed it to Yi Hao. It seemed that the mind control pill was quite useful. Yi Hao was secretly happy. Just now, he wanted to test the effect of the mind control pill. He didn't expect that Sun Ba didn't even have the slightest intention to resist. How could this be? Looking at the sect master token in Yi Hao's hand, Sun Ba was anxious. He didn't know why he was so obedient to Yi Hao's words just now. It was as if he had no strength to resist at all. Sun Ba was overjoyed and looked at Yi Hao tentatively. Master, is it you? Ha ha ha. It seems that you're not stupid. Yi Hao laughed and revealed his true face. Ah, Master, it's really you. Sun Ba greets Master. Seeing Yi Hao's true face, Sun Ba felt that it was a little unreal. He was so excited that tears filled his eyes. Get up and tell me about this token. Yi Hao looked at the red token in his hand. It was only 1/3 of the size of his palm, and there was nothing special about it. Sun Ba also frowned because he didn't know the use of this token. He only knew that there was a rule in the sect a long time ago. That was to protect the sect master token. As long as the sect existed, the token would exist. However, he didn't know the use of the token. Moreover, he had studied it for a period of time and found that it was just a simple token. Yi Hao felt that Sun Ba's words were a little strange. It was actually the sect rule of the Beast Monster sect that asked them to protect the token, but why didn't they tell them the use of the token? However, Yi Hao believed that Sun Ba would never lie to him. Yi Hao changed back to his original appearance and walked back with Sun Ba. Go search Xiao Xiong's body, Yi Hao said to Sun Ba. Sun Ba seemed to know what Yi Hao was going to do. He immediately walked in front of Sun Ba and began to search. Everyone looked at the two of them strangely, and then looked at Sun Ba, who was searching Xiao Xiong's body. Everyone was puzzled. What was going on with the two of them? After a while, Sun Ba shook his head. Yi Hao frowned and looked at the elder of the spiritual medicine sect. Where's your sect leader's token? Sect leader's order. Wasn't the sect master token with the sect master? An elder immediately bowed and said, replying to Commander Yi, the sect master has always carried the sect master's order with him. Since Zhao Xiong carried it with him, why wasn't the token with him? Yi Hao looked at Zhao Xiong's finger. Yi Hao immediately asked, did anyone approach Zhao Xiong just now? This was because Yi Hao discovered that Zhao Xiong's hand was completely empty. As the leader of a supreme power, it was absolutely impossible for him to not have a spatial ring. The elders immediately shook their heads. First Supreme Elder seems to have disappeared. Suddenly, an elder exclaimed. Yi Hao's heart sank. He understood that the token was probably with the First Supreme Elder. Did anyone see the First Supreme Elder? Yi Hao immediately asked in a deep voice. Suddenly, there was complete silence. After all, in the spiritual medicine sect, the First Supreme Elder's prestige was no less than Zhao Xiong's. They were still very afraid of the First Supreme Elder. Speak. Yi Hao was filled with murderous intent. He had finally found out about the origin source fragment. How could he be happy for nothing? Sensing Yi Hao's anger, the guards of the Bai Shang dynasty all drew their weapons. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Then, the squeak of the sky-devouring rats was heard. Everyone looked at the huge rats, whose eyes were glowing green and drooling as they looked at them. They were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. Are you going to speak or not? Yi Hao glanced at the crowd and shouted again. He believed that based on the current situation, the people of the spiritual medicine sect would not be able to hold on. Sure enough, an elder suddenly knelt on the ground and said in a trembling voice, Sir, Master. Master has gone to Mu Shengzhen. What? Yi Hao's face changed and he asked, what did he take? He took the sect leader's space ring. The elder could not withstand the pressure and immediately escaped. Go after him. Yi Hao summoned Zhang Fei. Zhang Fei immediately chased after Mu Shengzhen. A martial sage. Oh my God, he is a martial sage. I actually saw a martial sage. I am not dreaming. Everyone was shocked when they felt the aura of a martial sage from Zhang Fei's body. Sun Ba looked at Yi Hao in shock. He was even more certain that Yi Hao was a disciple of the mysterious family. Otherwise, how could he be a dragon and a martial sage? Moreover, he could control both of them. Sun Ba was glad that he had taken a mind control pill. Now, it seemed that he was not unlucky at all. Instead, he had hit the jackpot. After a long time, Zhang Fei came back with a whistling sound. Master, I did not catch up with him. Mu Shengzhen. Yi Hao gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He and Mu Shengzhen would have to fight sooner or later. It's time to return to the Fire Dragon Empire. Yi Hao muttered. Yi Hao left some subordinates under Sun Ba's command to suppress the elders of the Spirit Medicine Sect. Beast Monster Sect and Spirit Medicine Sect could be considered as one. Yi Hao did not stay and immediately rushed towards the Fire Dragon Empire. He still had to go to the Great Sun Empire to find news of his father. At this moment, the Tianlang Empire's 20 million troops were pressing down on the Fire Dragon Empire. The pressure caused the Fire Dragon Empire to be unable to breathe. After all, the quality of the Fire Dragon Empire soldiers could not compare to that of the Tianlang Empire. Moreover, they were inferior in number. Most importantly, Zhao Yun and Yu Fei were almost killed. Two generals, are they still not awake? Guan Yu's body was covered in wounds as he asked the two guards outside the tent. The two guards also looked exhausted as they shook their heads with a worried expression. Guan Yu immediately walked into the tent. Zhao Yun and Yu Fei were lying on the bed with pale faces and their eyes closed. What should we do? Cough, cough. Guan Yu's face was filled with worry as he held his chest and coughed violently. Originally, Zhao Yun and Yu Fei were ordered to be the vanguard and lead the troops to catch the Tianlang Empire's emperor off guard. At first, things were going in a good direction. Zhao Yun and Yu Fei were suppressing the enemy. But suddenly, two black-clothed men appeared and beat up Zhao Yun and Yu Fei. If he did not save them, they would have died. However, he was also seriously injured. But for the morale of the army, he did not show it and pretended that he was fine. Dong, dong, dong. Suddenly, war drums sounded outside. Guan Yu frowned as he stood up. Great General, the enemy has begun to attack. A guard anxiously ran in. Why are you panicking? Follow me to meet the enemy. Guan Yu said calmly. Guan Yu glanced at the two people lying on the bed with pale faces. Chapter 420. My lord, do you want to destroy the Fire Dragon Empire in one fell swoop? On a golden chariot, the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor was clad in golden armor as he asked arrogantly. On the golden chariot, there was a table with several black-clothed men drinking and having fun. There's no hurry. The entire Fire Dragon Empire is already in our hands. They won't be able to resist. Of course, we have to have fun. One of the black-clothed men laughed. However, the Fire Dragon Empire has 3 martial venerables. This is shocking. Hearing the black-clothed men's words, the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor felt a lingering fear. If it weren't for the black-clothed men's help, he wouldn't have dared to find trouble with the Fire Dragon Empire. That was 3 martial venerables. Just thinking about it made him shiver. Fortunately, the black-clothed men were there. The Fire Dragon Empire's martial venerables were not worth mentioning. However, when he thought about the Fire Dragon Empire's martial venerables, although they were heavily injured, as long as they were still alive, the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor felt like there was a knife in his throat. At the same time, the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor cursed the black-clothed men for being useless. 2 dignified peak martial venerables actually failed to kill 2 first-order martial venerables and even let them escape. However, this time, I must kill that Guan Yu. One of the peak martial venerables crushed the wine cup in his hand and interrupted the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor's thoughts. He was a peak martial saint. Previously, Guan Yu had saved Zhao Yun from his hands. That was a humiliation to him. All right, I'll leave that Guan Yu to you. Remember, don't kill him easily. Torture him to death. One of the Emperor Wu's experts said sinisterly. Yes, the martial venerable nodded, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. Dong, dong, dong. At this time, the Fire Dragon Empire's war drums finally sounded. Lords, the Fire Dragon Empire has sent out their troops. The Tianlang Heavenly Emperor had been watching Yanlong's army closely and immediately shouted in joy. Fellow disciples, watch me take that red-faced man's head. The peak martial venerable cupped his fists and took out his weapon and flew towards Guan Yu. Lords, aren't you going to help? The Tianlang Heavenly Emperor asked the others when he saw the martial venerable rise from the ground. That Guan Yu was severely injured by us last time. One of us is enough. Another marshal revered said. Then I can rest assured. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch heaved a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on his face once again. The Tianlang Heavenly Emperor's army was the Fire Dragon Empire's army's army. Red-faced man, you escaped from me the other day. Do you dare to fight me now? The marshal venerable to Tianlang's army's army twos to kill Guan Yu's head. Why wouldn't I dare? Guan Yu snorted coldly and also rose from the ground. Is he not injured? After carefully observing Guan Yu's appearance, the marshal honorable did not find any trace of injury on him. I clearly remember that I hit him in the chest, Wu Zun thought with a frown. Let's test him first. Unable to find any clues, the marshal venerable stopped thinking about it and attacked Guan Yu directly. Black blood kill. The marshal venerable used his martial skill. Immediately, a monstrous killing intent and evil energy filled the air. Sensing the marshal venerable's evil killing intent, both the Tianlang Heavenly Emperor and the Fire Dragon Empire soldiers felt uncomfortable. Demon Dao bastard die. Sensing the marshal venerable's evil aura, Guan Yu's face showed his displeasure. However, when he used his martial power, the blood in his body surged and affected his injuries. However, he could not show his weakness in a battle between two generals. Otherwise, it would be a great threat to the Fire Dragon Empire. Guan Yu gritted his teeth and endured. The marshal venerable was also sinister. He deliberately attacked Guan Yu's chest. The two of them fought. The huge impact hit Guan Yu's wounds and caused his injuries to worsen. Pooh! Guan Yu tried to resist, but he could not, and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Seeing Guan Yu spit out blood, the marshal venerable was stunned. He then laughed wildly. I guessed correctly. You're seriously injured. What happened to the great general? Why did the great general spit out blood? Could it be that the great general is no match for them? It's over. The Fire Dragon Empire is finished. Seeing Guan Yu spit out blood, all the Fire Dragon Empire soldiers began to panic. After all, Zhao Yun and Yu Fei, the two martial venerables, were injured. The Fire Dragon Empire was supported by Guan Yu. As the strongest person in the Fire Dragon Empire, Guan Yu was their spiritual pillar. If Guan Yu died, they did not know if they would still have the courage to pick up their weapons. Guan Yu did not care about his injuries and charged at the martial venerable again. Die! Guan Yu roared. The martial venerable's face changed. He did not expect Guan Yu to be so powerful. Plop! The martial venerable did not pay attention. Guan Yu seized the opportunity and split him in half. Pooh! Guan Yu covered his chest and spat out another mouthful of blood. Great General! All the soldiers were shocked. They did not expect Guan Yu to be able to kill a cultivator of the same level with his injuries. But the price was that Guan Yu's injuries were even more serious. At that moment, Guan Yu was also forcefully holding on. If he had not relied on his strong willpower to kill the martial honorable, he would have been the one to die. How could this be? Seeing that Guan Yu had killed one of their men, the men in black could no longer keep calm. They all stood up in disbelief. Sirs, what should we do? The Tianlang dynasty's monarch was also shocked. He did not expect Guan Yu to fight with his life on the line. He looked at Guan Yu, who was holding the green dragon crescent blade in his hand. His long beard was fluttering in the wind. Let me do it. Another martial venerable jumped up from the ground and charged at Guan Yu. Guan Yu was shocked. My life is over. Guan Yu was well aware of the current state of his body. He knew that he would not be able to fight another martial honorable. Die! The martial venerable's long sword was filled with murderous intent as he charged at Guan Yu. Guan Yu shouted and raised the green dragon crescent blade. He wanted to fight with his life on the line again. Bang! The martial venerable was like a cannonball as he charged at Guan Yu. Guan Yu was like a kite with a broken string as he flew backward. Boom! Guan Yu was smashed into the army and dozens of people were injured. A huge pit of a few meters appeared on the ground. The soldiers of the Tianlang kingdom immediately surrounded Guan Yu. Guan Yu fell into the deep pit and was covered in blood. Guan Yu groaned and stood up with difficulty. The soldiers of the Tianlang kingdom could not help but take a step back. Kill him. The marshal, venerable, looked at Guan Yu with disdain and shouted, Kill! Chapter 421. Quick, save the general. Charge! The Fire Dragon Empire was also shocked. As Guan Yu crashed into the Sky Wolf Kingdom's army, Dian Wei's Suda and the others immediately led their soldiers to attack. Stop right there. At this moment, a loud shout came from the sky. Everyone immediately looked towards the sky, only to see a dozen people standing in the air, coldly looking at everyone. Who is Guan Yu? Brother F.A. glanced at the millions of soldiers and asked in a deep voice. Seeing that no one answered, Brother F.A. quickly said, I was sent by the master to save Brother Guan Yu. Sir, General Guan Yu has been shot down by the enemy and is heavily injured. Sir, please save him. One of the generals from the Yin Dragon Empire hurriedly said to Brother F.A., as if he had seen a life-saving straw. Brother F.A. was shocked. This was a mission given to him by the master. If Guan Yu died, it would be a big problem. Quick, save General Guan Yu. Brother F.A. immediately said to the people behind him. The people behind Brother F.A. immediately rushed towards the Sky Wolf Kingdom's army. At this moment, Guan Yu was heavily injured. His arms felt like they were filled with lead. Even the green dragon crescent blade, which used to be like an extension of his arm, was difficult to wield now. But even so, there were thousands of corpses around Guan Yu. Oh my God, this martial honorable is too scary. His life is hanging by a thread, but his strength is still so strong. Kill. Let's see how many people you can kill. I have 20 million people here. Let's see how long you can last. The martial honorable sneered at Guan Yu. Guan Yu glared at the martial honorable angrily. If he wasn't injured, he would have killed this person. Huh, you still dare to look at me like that? You don't know the situation. Seeing Guan Yu's angry eyes, the martial honorable was shocked. But soon, he was annoyed and threw a palm at Guan Yu. Pooh! Facing this palm, Guan Yu couldn't resist at all. He knelt down and spat out a mouthful of blood. Kill! Seeing Guan Yu fall, the soldiers took the opportunity and stabbed their weapons at Guan Yu. Get out of my way! Brother F.A. anxiously flew over and threw a palm at Guan Yu. He instantly attacked the people who wanted to attack Guan Yu, and they were all sent flying back. The martial grandmaster's face turned solemn. He looked at Brother F.A. cautiously and warned, Who are you? I'm warning you, don't meddle in my business. Oomph. Brother F.A. snorted coldly. He didn't put him in his eyes at all and directly attacked him. You. The revered martial artist was furious, but he reacted quickly. It's actually someone from the demonic path. Sensing the aura of a martial honorable, Brother F.A. frowned and released his aura. Boom! How could a martial honorable be a match for Brother F.A.? He was immediately suppressed to the ground by Brother F.A.'s aura. You, who are you? Feeling the aura that he couldn't resist, the revered martial artist raised his head with difficulty and asked Brother F.A., I'm the one who wants your life. Brother F.A. was too lazy to waste his breath on this kind of trash. He just smashed his head with his palm. Whoosh! The soldiers of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom immediately retreated in fear. Even a martial highness was killed by Brother F.A. with a single palm strike. Everyone knew that Brother F.A. was no ordinary person, so none of them dared to step forward. Are you all right? Brother F.A. immediately landed on the ground and helped Guan Yu up. Then, he took out a pill and fed it to Guan Yu. After the pill entered Guan Yu's mouth, his injuries immediately stabilized. You don't have to speak. Just leave this to me. Brother F.A. was shocked when he saw the injuries on Guan Yu's body. This person was really fierce. Brother F.A. grabbed Guan Yu and flew towards the army of the Fire Dragon Empire. None of the soldiers of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom dared to stop them. Stop right there. Who are you? Leave your name. This person in black, who was of the same rank as Emperor Wu, blocked Brother F.A.'s path and asked fiercely. Scram! Brother F.A. glanced at him and continued to fly forward. You're asking for death. As Emperor Wu, he was disregarded by Brother F.A. This made him very unhappy. He gathered his martial arts energy and attacked Brother Fa. However, Brother Fa didn't care about him at all. He directly hit Brother Fa with his palm. Gotcha! A crack instantly appeared on the long sword in the martial emperor's hand. Emperor Wu was shocked. He knew that Brother Fa was not someone to be trifled with. He wanted to run away, but Brother Fa wouldn't let him do as he wished. The martial arts energy in his hand generated a suction force and directly grabbed Emperor Wu. Don't. Let's talk. Emperor Wu panicked. After all, his life was in the hands of Brother Fa. Brother Fa didn't care about him. He increased the strength in his hand and directly crushed Emperor Wu's head. So strong. Guan Yu looked at Brother Fa weakly. Brother Fa killed Emperor Wu so easily. Guan Yu was very envious. Those who stand in my way shall die. Brother Fa shouted and threw Emperor Wu's body down. The remaining people in the golden chariot no longer had a calm expression. They were all frowning. The king of Celestial Wolf Kingdom was even more anxious. He looked at the people in black, but he didn't dare to say anything when he saw their expressions. Retreat. After thinking for a while, one of the people in black suddenly said, "What? Retreat?" The king of Celestial Wolf Kingdom looked at the person in black. "Hurry up. They are not here to save us." The person in black said coldly. His eyes were fixed on Brother Fa. The person in black murmured, "Could it be that the person in question has appeared?" It was impossible for so many experts to appear out of nowhere. So, he guessed that Yi Hao had returned. Woo, 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 following the king of Celestial Wolf Kingdom's order. The soldiers of Celestial Wolf Kingdom immediately retreated. Retreat. Guan Yu was supported by Brother Fa. Guan Yu said weakly as he was supported by Brother Fa. Both armies left behind hundreds of thousands of bodies and retreated. Too many things had happened in a short period of time. First, Guan Yu was severely injured and was at a disadvantage. Then, Guan Yu was in danger. Now, Brother Fa appeared and killed 2 experts in black. The series of events that happened made people unable to react. Trash. A bunch of trash. In the palace of Celestial Wolf Kingdom, the sect leader was furious. "Men!" The sect leader shouted. "Here!" Suddenly, hundreds of people in black rushed out from nowhere. Among them, there were Emperor Wu and martial emperors. "Follow me and wipe out the Fire Dragon Empire." The sect leader's face was filled with killing intent. "Yes, sect leader!" All the people in black shouted at the same time. "Sect leader, we are incompetent. Please punish us." In the camp of Celestial Wolf Kingdom, several people in black knelt at the feet of the sect leader. "Punish." The sect leader's voice was gloomy. He immediately attacked the people in black. "Since you want to be punished, then die." The people in black's expression changed, but before they could react, they were turned into blood mist. Trash. The sect leader didn't take the deaths of his subordinates seriously. He was still restless. However, he knew that if there were no special circumstances, it would be impossible for Yen Long to become a martial emperor. Chapter 422. My lord, how are the 2 generals? Guan Yu asked worriedly as he looked at the 2 men lying on the ground. "General Guan, you don't have to worry. I've already fed both of them some pills. They're fine now." Brother Fa said as he looked at Zhao Yun and Yu Fei. Guan Yu looked at the 2 of them. At first, his breathing was erratic, but now, his breathing had stabilized. Their incomparably pale faces gradually regained their rosy color. "Thank you, my lord." Guan Yu quickly thanked Brother Fa. "You are welcome. This is all my fault. If not, the 2 generals would not have been injured so badly." Brother Fa waved his hand and blamed himself. "My lord, you don't have to blame yourself. You have saved our lives." Guan Yu is very grateful. Guan Yu thanked Brother Fa again. It was late at night. Other than the guards who were still patrolling the 2 camps, the rest of the soldiers had already fallen asleep. But in the sky, there were a few figures flashing by. They were so fast that they looked like streaks of lightning. Brother Fa, that should be the tent of the Tianlang dynasty's monarch. A few of them stood in the sky. One of them pointed at a 100-meter-tall tent. Outside the big tent, there were many smaller tents surrounding it. Tens of thousands of soldiers were patrolling the area. All right, let's show them who's boss tonight. After Brother F.A. said that, the few of them rushed towards the big tent. Under the cover of the night, the few of them successfully entered the big tent. The big tent was divided into two parts. The front was the military area, and the back was where the Tianlang dynasty's monarchs slept. However, when the few of them entered the big tent, they found that it was empty. The few of them were shocked. Feeling that the atmosphere was not right, they all looked at Brother F.A. Brother F.A. immediately sent a voice transmission to the few of them and said, "I will guard this place. You guys go in and kill that bastard for me." At the same time, there were more than 10 people hiding behind the big tent. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch sneered, "I can't wait for you guys to come in. Come in quickly." But after waiting for a long time, there was no movement outside the big tent. The Tianlang dynasty's monarch panicked. "Quick, not good." They ran away. "Go after them." The Tianlang dynasty's monarch rushed out after saying that. But the moment he came out, his face changed and his whole body froze. Because the moment he came out, several auras locked onto him, and a powerful attack came as expected. "Bastard, you dare to play tricks with me? You're still too inexperienced." Brother F.A. sneered at the Tianlang dynasty's ruler. The Tianlang heavenly wolf monarch's face was filled with indignation as he was reduced to a pile of meat paste by the barrage of attacks. Retreat. After killing the Tianlang heavenly king, Brother F.A. sensed a dangerous aura coming from behind the tent. Thus, he immediately shouted, "Quick, stop them. We can't let them escape." The black-clothed man behind the big tent hurriedly rushed out at this time. Looking at the meat paste on the ground, each of the black-clothed men was incomparably furious. They never thought that not only would their plan fail, but the Tianlang heavenly monarch they were supposed to protect would be killed right in front of their very eyes. "You want to run? Do you think you can escape?" Just when Brother F.A. and the rest rushed out of the tent, sect leader's voice rang in their ears. Brother F.A. and the rest were shocked. When they looked over, they realized that they were surrounded by hundreds of men in black. Sensing the aura of the black-clothed men, Brother F.A.'s face turned pale. These men were all Emperor Wu and Martial Emperors. Brother F.A. and the rest were all Emperor Wu, and only he was a beginner Martial Emperor. How could they fight against so many people? Sacrificing your own men? You're really ruthless. Brother F.A. looked at sect leader and said, "Haha, ruthless? How is this ruthless?" Sect leader laughed proudly. "He's just a piece of trash. He's just a pawn of mine. He's going to die sooner or later. He's just going to die a little early." He wondered if the Tianlang heavenly monarch would crawl out of hell and bite him if he heard what sect leader said. Baisheng dynasty? Suddenly, sect leader looked at their armor and his face changed. He said sternly, "You're from the Baisheng dynasty?" When Brother F.A. heard this, he wanted to refute. However, when he thought of his own situation, he could not help but say, "So what if we are? How could this be? Is that kid related to the Baisheng dynasty?" Sect leader frowned when he heard Brother F.A.'s admission. Although they were both sacred sects, the Blood Demon Church could not be compared to the Baisheng dynasty. That was because the Blood Demon Church had withered and its former glory was gone. In the past, the Blood Demon Church still had martial gods. They were the top existences in the Myriad Kingdom continent. However, the Blood Demon Church did not have any martial gods, but the Baisheng dynasty did. Therefore, when sect leader found out that Brother F.A. was from the Baisheng dynasty, he knew that this matter would be troublesome. Is that kid from the Baisheng dynasty? Or did he join the Baisheng dynasty? The sect leader panicked when he thought of this. Then, he looked at Brother F.A. and the rest. "Do you know who I am?" Brother F.A. looked at sect leader who was dressed in black and was confused. He did not know who the sect leader was, so he did not know who he was. Sect leader was relieved when he saw Brother F.A.'s expression. This proved that the Baisheng Holy Dynasty didn't know who they were. Otherwise, they would be in trouble if the Patriarch and the Heavenly Een Spirit were exposed. However, judging from their reaction, it meant that they did not know who they were. Should I kill them or not? Sect leader squinted his eyes and looked at Brother Fa. He was thinking quickly. Suddenly, sect leader snorted and decided to frame his opponents. How dare you provoke the dark god-demon sect? Only death awaits you. Kill them. Following sect leader's order, everyone immediately attacked Brother Fa and the rest. Run! Following Brother Fa's shout, the few of them immediately started to run. Brother Fa killed 2 of Emperor Wu's experts and created a gap for them to escape. Chase them! Sect leader shouted, and hundreds of black-clothed men chased after them. Go back! In an instant, a group of black-clothed men flew backward. Everyone stopped in their tracks in shock. Oh no! Is the Baisheng dynasty's expert here? Sect leader thought with mixed feelings and hid among the thousands of soldiers. So strong. Who could it be? Brother Fa also stopped in his tracks. The people around him also had big and small wounds on their bodies. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice. Roar! A dragon's roar could be heard. 100-meter-long giant dragon was hovering in the air. A handsome young man was sitting on top of the giant dragon, and 2 women were leaning on him. The young man was wearing a platinum dragon robe with a crown on his head. He was sitting on a throne that looked extremely arrogant. The throne was shining with dazzling light. 9 divine dragons with different expressions were sitting on the throne. The 9 divine dragons were very lively, and they were emitting a faint dragon's aura. It was the heavenly dragon throne. Around the 100-meter-long giant dragon were hundreds of soldiers. The most eye-catching one was the bearded Zhang Fei with the snake spear in his hand. At this moment, Guan Yu and the rest noticed the commotion and walked out. Greetings, my lord. May my lord live for 10,000 years. When he saw Yi Hao, Guan Yu knelt on the ground. Hearing Guan Yu's words, all the soldiers of the Fire Dragon Empire went crazy. Their lord? This person is their lord. Their lord actually had a giant dragon. Chapter 423. Kill him. The sect leader looked at the giant dragon and realized that it was only a martial honorable. Although the giant dragon was powerful, it could only fight against Emperor Wu. Therefore, he wanted to test Yi Hao's real strength. Actually, when the sect leader saw Yi Hao acting so coquettishly, he felt very envious in his heart. Kill him. The sect leader sent a telepathic message to the hundreds of men in black. They immediately attacked Yi Hao. Protect the master. Brother Fa, Guan Yu, and the rest shouted. Stand down. Yi Hao waved his arm, and everyone retreated. Zhang Fei, here. Zhang Fei replied immediately when he heard Yi Hao's call. Destroy them. Yi Hao said softly. Roar. Receiving the order, Zhang Fei roared and dashed out like a bolt of lightning. Bang, bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, Zhang Fei and the hundreds of men in black were engaged in battle. Furthermore, it was an overwhelming suppression. One by one, the black-robed men fell down like raindrops. Ding dong. Congratulations. Ding dong. Congratulations. In an instant, the system's notifications kept ringing in Yi Hao's mind. 10 seconds. In just 10 seconds, Zhang Fei stood in front of Yi Hao and said, Master, all the trash has been cleared. Everyone's hearts almost jumped out of their chests when they heard Zhang Fei's words. Those were hundreds of Emperor Wu and martial emperors. In just 10 seconds, all of them had been killed. In the eyes of others, they were just trash. We pay our respects to the Lord. Long live the Lord. We pay our respects to the Lord. Long live the Lord. We pay our respects to the Lord. Long live the Lord. If they did not pay their respects now, when would they? The Flame Dragon Empire's army of millions knelt down in droves as they cried out in unison. The shouts of the army were so loud that the demonic beasts fled in fear. The nearby countries thought that the enemy had attacked and were on high alert. Ding dong. Congratulations. Reputation points increased by 10,000. Ding dong. Congratulations to host for gaining 100,000 reputation points. Ding dong. Congratulations to host for gaining 70,000 reputation points. At the same time, Yi Hao's reputation points were also increasing rapidly. On the other hand, the Welkin Wolf Kingdom's army was in an extremely embarrassing situation. Surrender or die. Choose one, Yi Hao said softly as he scanned the 20 million soldiers of the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom. Although Yi Hao's voice was soft, it was filled with an irresistible force. This caused the 20 million soldiers to involuntarily kneel to the ground. We surrender. At the same time, the Imperial Ranking Board and the Dukedom Ranking Board were in an uproar. The name of the Fire Dragon Empire, which had been quiet for a long time, seemed to have gone crazy as it advanced by leaps and bounds, directly charging to first place. Moreover, behind the name of the Fire Dragon Empire, there were 10 little golden dragons that were incomparably dazzling. Everyone knew what these 10 little golden dragons represented. 10 golden dragons was unheard of in the Myriad Kingdom continent. It had never been seen before. In the Myriad Kingdom continent, the most powerful person on the Dukedom Ranking Board was the former Thousand Emperor, but he had only obtained 8 golden dragons. The number of golden dragons represented the strength of a country. Moreover, as the number of golden dragons increased, the martial strength in the Fire Dragon Empire's region would also change and gradually increase. In the future, the number of warriors in the Fire Dragon Empire would increase and become more and more powerful. If the Dukedom Ranking Board had 10 golden dragons, then the Fire Dragon Empire would definitely be famous in the Myriad Kingdom continent for tens of thousands of years. Moreover, the Fire Dragon Empire would definitely shake the entire continent and be in the limelight. Martial Sage? Why would a martial sage appear here? The sect leader looked at Zhang Fei with a face full of shock. Moreover, what made him feel humiliated was, in order to hide himself and not be discovered, he could only kneel on the ground in incomparable grievance. A dignified sect leader actually had to kneel in such a sullen manner in order to survive. If word got out, the reputation of the Blood Demon cult would be completely destroyed. I'm going to pass the news to the Patriarch. I'm enduring humiliation. That's right, I'm enduring humiliation. The sect leader lowered his head and thought, trying hard to find a reason for kneeling. Go! Suddenly, Yi Hao opened his mouth and spat out a word. Everyone looked at Yi Hao, not understanding what Yi Hao meant. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Suddenly, huge sky-devouring rats fell from the sky and pounced on the black-clothed man's corpse, tearing it apart. Everyone's expression changed. There were at least tens of thousands of sky-devouring rats. If these sky-devouring rats bit their bodies, they didn't dare to think about it. Rip! The sound of tearing filled the ears of many soldiers, especially the troops of the Celestial Wolf Kingdom. Their bodies trembled even more violently. It's actually sky-devouring rats. Why are there so many of them? As the sect leader of the Blood Demon cult, he naturally recognized the sky-devouring rats at a glance. He wasn't afraid of a small number of sky-devouring rats, but tens of thousands of them made him break out in cold sweat. The sect leader looked at Yi Hao in disbelief. How did he do it? If we don't get rid of this kid, there will be no place for the Blood Demon cult. A mountain couldn't accommodate 2 tigers. This saying was very suitable for the Heavenly Een spirits. The 2 Heavenly Een spirits would definitely fight in the end. This was also why the Blood Demon Patriarch was so anxious to find Yi Hao. He was afraid that Yi Hao would grow stronger. You dare to betray this emperor. This is the outcome. Yi Hao said in a dignified tone after the sky-devouring rats finished eating the corpses on the ground. We don't dare. The heaven-devouring rats' intimidating power was extremely great. Over 20 million soldiers who had surrendered all cried out in unison. Yi Hao glanced at the system and saw that everyone's loyalty was rising. He was relieved. After all, this was an army of 20 million, not just a few people. They would be the backbone of the Fire Dragon Empire in the future. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. All of you, listen to my orders. Suddenly, Yi Hao shouted at the 100-man team beside him. The remaining guards of the 2nd and 8th teams immediately knelt on the ground and waited for Yi Hao's orders. All of you, quickly destroy all the other forces around the Flame Dragon Empire. Yi Hao had been shocked when he heard that the Bai Sheng dynasty and Mu Shengzhen were going to destroy thousands of countries just because of a slight conflict. Therefore, he also wanted to develop the Fire Dragon Empire. The Fire Dragon Empire was surrounded by kingdoms and spirit nations. As for dukedoms and marquisate nations, they had already been wiped out by the Fire Dragon Empire's army. Yes, your majesty. All the guards bowed and flew off in different directions. The weakest among these guards was a martial venerable. Therefore, they could completely wipe out any forces below Spirit Nation. As for the forces behind them, Yi Hao wasn't afraid at all. This was because the biggest controllers of the Fire Dragon Empire's territory were the Great Sun Dynasty and the Fire Empire. And in the Imperial Dynasty, the strongest expert was at most a martial emperor. Most importantly, he already had a martial sage expert. He could develop quickly. Reported to my lord, there's an army of 10 million in the east. Should I go and destroy it? Zhang Fei suddenly asked. Chapter 424. My lord, the Fire Dragon Empire is just 100 miles ahead. We have already rested for half a month. It's time to make a decision. On a mountain peak, Zheng Dong's face was full of worry. At this moment, one of Zheng Dong's confidants said worriedly as he looked at Zheng Dong's back. Send out the troops. Zheng Dong made up his mind. My lord, do we really have to do this? The confidant looked at Zheng Dong with a complicated expression. As Zheng Dong's confidant, he naturally understood the problem that Zheng Dong was facing. He also knew what the emperor was thinking. The emperor definitely didn't want to save the Fire Dragon Empire. Although the emperor had given Zheng Dong this order, if Zheng Dong really did it, Zheng Dong would definitely die. And if Zheng Dong didn't save the Fire Dragon Empire, that would be defying the Fire Emperor's order. At that time, Zheng Dong would still be the one to bear the blame. Therefore, no matter what Zheng Dong did, it would be a dead end. Don't worry, I will bear all the blame. Looking at his confidant's worried face, Zheng Dong said fearlessly, My lord, that's not what I meant. If my lord dies, I will definitely not live. The confidant quickly bowed and said. Zheng Dong smiled in relief. There's no need. Just help this old man take care of this old man's family, and I can die in peace. My lord, I have something to say. I don't know if I should say it. You want to ask why I want to save the Fire Dragon Empire, right? Although the confidant didn't say anything, Zheng Dong was very clear about it. It's hard to find a confidant in life. The emperor of the Fire Dragon Empire is a good person, Zheng Dong said with a smile. Ha! It's rare for Brother Zheng Dong to praise this emperor. This emperor is very gratified. Suddenly, a bright young man's voice was heard. Zheng Dong abruptly raised his head to look, only to see a black shadow in the air currently descending at extreme speed. Dragon, it's a giant dragon. Sir, be careful. Zheng Dong's trusted aide hurriedly stood in front of Zheng Dong and pulled out his weapon in panic. Roar! The dragon roared and directly blew the underling away. Zheng Dong narrowed his eyes and looked at the giant dragon. Then he asked in confusion, May I ask who it is? What's wrong, Brother Zheng? Don't you recognize me? Yi Hao said and jumped in front of Zheng Dong. It's you? Seeing Yi Hao, Zheng Dong was stunned at first. He didn't recognize Yi Hao. Because of the time they had been apart, Yi Hao's height and appearance had changed quite a bit. Even his aura was something that he had to look up to, but upon closer inspection, Zheng Dong could still recognize Yi Hao. Zheng Dong greets a young emperor, Yin Long. Zheng Dong immediately bowed. Although Zheng Dong didn't know what had happened during this time, it wasn't difficult for him to see that Yi Hao's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Moreover, the giant dragon beside Yi Hao gave him quite a shock. Brother Zheng, there's no need to be so courteous. Drink with me, Yi Hao said with a smile as he took out 2 bottles of good wine. Seeing the 2 bottles of wine in Yi Hao's hands, Zheng Dong couldn't help but lick his lips. He was extremely envious. Okay. I'll get someone to prepare the wine and dishes. Zheng Dong quickly said. Yi Hao smiled and said, There's no need. I've already prepared them. Come with me. Zhengdong looked around and didn't see any wine or dishes. Then, Zhengdong was shocked. He looked at the giant dragon in disbelief. He thought to himself, could the wine and dishes be on the giant dragon? Could it be that he would be able to ride a giant dragon in his lifetime? Thinking of this, Zhengdong couldn't help but feel excited. Come with me. Yihao grabbed Zhengdong's shoulder very naturally. Zhengdong trembled slightly, but did not refuse. He followed Yihao onto the giant dragon's back. Come, have a good drink with me. At this time, a banquet table had already been set up on the giant dragon's back. There were all kinds of delicacies. At this time, Zhengdong clearly hadn't recovered from his shock. He hurriedly raised his wine cup with trembling hands. Brother Zheng, why didn't you send reinforcements to my country with your 10 million troops? Could it be that you looked down on my fire dragon empire? Yihao suddenly asked coldly when he saw that Zhengdong had finished drinking. Zhengdong's body trembled slightly. He didn't expect that Yihao had already grown to such an extent. When they first met Yihao, the two of them were on equal footing. But now, Yihao's every move was intimidating. Zhengdong had a feeling that Yihao's aura was much stronger than the fiend demon emperor's. Looking at Yihao smiling at him, Zhengdong smiled bitterly. He understood that Yihao was giving him face, which was why he hadn't fallen out with him yet. Zhengdong smiled bitterly. He poured himself a cup of wine and downed it. Then he sighed. As a subject, I naturally have my own difficulties. But according to what I know, the fiend demon emperor sent troops to save Yin Long from the start. You have your own difficulties. Yihao narrowed his eyes and asked, anger rising in his heart. Hearing Yihao's unfriendly tone, Zhengdong smiled. No matter which power it is, they wouldn't want their subordinates to grow too quickly or have too much potential. What you're saying is that I, Yin Long, am a threat to the fiend demon spirit kingdom. That's why the fiend demon emperor wants to exterminate me, Yin Long. Yihao's voice sank. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame the fire emperor for placing too much importance on the fire dragon empire. His majesty wants to kill you. Zhengdong didn't deny it. He looked at Yihao and sighed. Then why did the fiend demon emperor send troops? Yihao didn't understand. That's because the fire emperor issued a decree. His majesty doesn't dare to go against it. Fire emperor. Yihao's impression of the fire emperor had improved by quite a bit. Yihao looked at Zhengdong. Aren't you the fiend demon emperor's most trusted aide? If that's the case, this is obviously a suicide mission. Why would he send you? Could it be that you've slept with his concubine? Zhengdong rolled his eyes at Yihao and sighed again. His face was filled with desolation. I didn't expect his majesty to be so cruel. All I did was put in a few good words for you. I didn't expect him to send me down this path of no return. Looks like it's been hard on you. Yihao didn't expect that Zhengdong would end up in such a state because of him. He felt a little sorry for himself. Let's go. This emperor will seek justice for you. Yihao suddenly stood up and said, You mustn't. You're all alone. Wouldn't that be? Zhengdong was about to say the words seeking death, but he swallowed them back down his throat. One had to know that in Zhengdong's eyes, the fiend demon emperor was extremely powerful. Even he himself was a martial honorable. Most importantly, the fiend demon spirit kingdom had a powerful spell, although he hadn't seen it before. However, one time, the fiend demon emperor had said that the spell was set up by a powerful spell master after drinking too much. It was fine if it didn't activate, but if it did, it would destroy the heavens and earth. Anyone below the level of Emperor Wu wouldn't be able to resist the spell. Zhengdong looked at the giant dragon beneath his feet and relaxed a little. He asked, Young Emperor, may I ask how powerful Lord Giant Dragon is? Peak Martial Honorable. Young Emperor, Lord Giant Dragon is definitely no match for the Fiend Demon Great Spell. That spell could kill someone at the peak of Emperor Wu. Recently, the Imperial family has been perfecting the spell for generations. I reckon that even a beginner martial emperor would be killed by the spell. Zhengdong couldn't help but advise Yihao when he heard about the power of the giant dragon. Chapter 425. What? Hearing Yihao's words, Zheng Dong was startled. He immediately glanced downward, and an extremely familiar scene appeared before his eyes. Fiend Demon Royal City. The royal city below was naturally the Fiend Demon Empire's royal city. Zheng Dong was extremely shocked. How long had it been? In the time it took to drink 2 cups of wine, they had already arrived at the Fiend Demon Royal City. May I ask who has arrived? The giant dragon circled above the Fiend Demon Royal City. At this time, the Fiend Demon Royal City's array had already been activated. A general of the martial spirit realm stood up and asked respectfully, "This is the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom's Royal Army's 3rd Deputy Commander. He has reached the peak of martial spirit realm at such a young age and is also an influential figure among the younger generation of the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom." Looking at the martial spirit realm general, Zheng Dong explained, "He's just a coward," Yi Hao said disdainfully as he looked at the general hiding in the array. "Call your emperor out. Tell him that Yanlong's young emperor is looking for him." Yi Hao said, "Who is Yanlong's young emperor?" The people in the city below were all puzzled. Could it be the emperor of the Fire Dragon Empire? Suddenly, someone guessed, "Isn't the Fire Dragon Empire a vassal state of the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom? I heard that it's just a duchy. How could it have a giant dragon?" Someone retorted rudely, "Could it be another powerful force?" The martial spirit realm general looked up at the giant dragon and asked, "May I ask which Yanlong's young emperor is it? I can go and report it." "You talk too much. I'll go find it myself." Yi Hao had just finished speaking when 2 arrays appeared in front of him. Break! Yi Hao easily found the weakness of the Fiend Demon Array through the array heart. Yi Hao took out his blood-stained dual sabers and shouted, "Earth-devouring slash." What's he doing? Is he crazy? He's asking for it. This is the Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom's famous array. He's just an idiot. You're overestimating yourself. Everyone was stunned by Yi Hao's actions at first. Then they mocked him loudly. "Young Emperor, be careful." Zheng Dong did not expect Yi Hao to be so impulsive. He did not even understand the array formation before attacking. One had to know that the strength of the Fiend Demon formation was that it could both defend and attack. Yi Hao attacked the Fiendish Demon Array formation without any regard for his life. He would suffer a fatal blow from the Fiendish Demon Array formation. This was simply courting death. What an arrogant little brat. But arrogance requires capital. He dares to rashly attack the Fiend Demon formation. He must pay the price of death. Yi Hao's arrival naturally attracted the attention of the Fiend Demon Emperor. Hundreds of civil and military officials stood behind the Fiend Demon Emperor and sneered. He looked at Yi Hao as if he was looking at a dead man. However, looking at the majestic dragon in the sky, the Fiend Demon Emperor was also envious. How great would it be if this was his mount? However, when he met the dragon's ferocious gaze, the Fiend Demon Emperor could not help but shiver. Then, the Fiend Demon Emperor was enraged. Stinky dragon. When your master is dead, watch how I control the array formation to deal with you." Bang! Yi Hao's blood-stained dual blades slammed into the Fiend Demon Array formation. A blinding white light exploded above the array formation. It was so bright that no one could open their eyes. They could not help but close their eyes. "Ha ha! That little brat must have turned into dust." The Fiend Demon Emperor was the first to recover. He laughed proudly. However, he did not hear the praises he had expected from the officials. The Fiend Demon Emperor frowned unhappily. Then, he saw the strange look in the guard's eyes. The Fiend Demon Emperor said unhappily, "What's with that expression? Your Majesty behind you." A guard panicked and pointed behind the Fiend Demon Emperor's back. The Fiend Demon Emperor turned around abruptly and saw Yi Hao standing behind him. The blood-stained dual blades in his hands looked ferocious. How was this possible? The Fiend Demon Emperor looked at the array formation in the air. However, there was no sign of it. "Let's talk things over." The Fiend Demon Emperor looked at Yi Hao carefully. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I've heard that you're very arrogant." Yi Hao chuckled as he asked. The Fiend Demon Emperor felt like crying. Who is the arrogant one between the two of us? One look, and you can tell. I'm warning you. You better act rashly. Otherwise, the Fire Emperor will not let you off. The Fiend Demon Emperor had no choice but to use the Fire Emperor to intimidate Yi Hao. Fire Emperor? I'll look for him personally. There's no need for that. I'm here. Yi Hao had just finished speaking when a middle-aged man in yellow robes walked over. His body exuded the aura of a ruler, causing everyone to feel suffocated. Greetings to the Fire Emperor. The Fiend Demon Spirit Kingdom people hurriedly knelt down when they saw the Fire Emperor. Even the Fiend Demon Emperor bowed when he saw the Fire Emperor. However, there was one exception. That was Yi Hao. At this point, Yi Hao looked at the Fire Emperor calmly. His expression was neither servile nor overbearing. There was no trace of fear. Why didn't you bow when you saw me? The Fire Emperor's voice was filled with authority as he looked at Yi Hao with disdain. Because you're not worthy. Yi Hao chuckled. Huh. Hearing Yi Hao's words, everyone felt as though their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. It was one thing for the emperor of a duchy to not bow when he saw the emperor of an empire, but he actually dared to say that the Fire Emperor wasn't worthy. Such arrogance. If this wasn't courting death, what was? Hearing Yi Hao's words, the Fiend Demon Emperor laughed coldly. Even without him, the Fire Emperor wouldn't let Yi Hao off so easily. Ha ha! When the Fire Emperor heard Yi Hao's words, he laughed out loud. However, his laughter was terrifying and caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Then you shall die. The Fire Emperor placed his hands behind his back. All of a sudden, he raised his right hand and a fiery glow appeared on his palm. The fiery glow transformed into a huge tiger which pounced towards Yi Hao. Destroy! Yi Hao spat out a single word as his body emitted a powerful energy. Boom! The huge fiery tiger was instantly destroyed and was sent flying in all directions. Run! The faces of the Fiend Demon Country's people fell. However, there were still many officials who were struck by the fiery glow and were instantly incinerated. So strong, the Fire Emperor's heart sank. Initially, he didn't think much of Yi Hao. After all, Yi Hao was much younger than him. However, Yi Hao was able to easily neutralize his attack, even though he didn't use his full strength. Looking at Yi Hao's expression, it was obvious that he was more relaxed than the Fire Emperor. Could it be that this kid's cultivation level is higher than mine? The Fire Emperor couldn't help but take Yi Hao seriously. Why don't we talk? The Fire Emperor placed his hands behind his back again as his tone became more friendly. What's going on? Could it be that this kid is so strong that even the Fire Emperor doesn't dare to offend him? Everyone saw the change in the Fire Emperor's attitude and looked at Yi Hao in shock. Chapter 426. If you become my general, I will give you a quarter of the Fire Empire's territory. Yi Hao was so young and yet so powerful. Since the Fire Emperor couldn't fight, he would try his best to win Yi Hao over. Hearing the Fire Emperor's words, everyone's faces fell. They didn't understand why the Fire Emperor was willing to spend so much to win over Yi Hao. Could it be that Yi Hao was really that strong? Let's not talk about how big the Fire Empire was. Even the countries under it were as powerful as the Fiend Spirit Country. There were at least 100 of them. If the Fire Emperor were to do this, it would be equivalent to giving Yi Hao over 20 countries. Ha ha! The Fire Emperor is really generous. Seeing the Fire Emperor's actions, Yi Hao was surprised as well as he laughed out loud. The Fire Emperor squinted his eyes and laughed as well. Does that mean you agree? I'm sorry, but I have a huge appetite. Yi Hao shrugged his shoulders and said apologetically. The Fire Emperor's face fell. He didn't expect Yi Hao to be so tactless. His face revealed his displeasure once again, but he suppressed it and continued laughing. Very big? How big is it? Tell me. It's not that big. It's just that the conditions are reversed. Why don't you become my subordinate, and I will ensure that your Fire Empire doesn't perish. Yi Hao spoke as if he didn't care about the Fire Emperor at all. However, when everyone heard Yi Hao's words, they all clutched their chests. This was because Yi Hao's words were too frightening. Everyone could already guess how angry the Fire Emperor was. That's right, the Fire Emperor was angry, and it wasn't just an ordinary anger. At this point, the Fire Emperor's face was extremely gloomy. Are you really courting death? The Fire Emperor gritted his teeth as he spat out each word. Everyone realized that they couldn't see through Yi Hao at all. The Fire Emperor had already lowered his stance, and yet he still didn't know what was good for him. Everyone didn't understand if Yi Hao was being arrogant and conceited, or if Yi Hao really had the ability. Why don't you give it a try? Yi Hao yawned as if he hadn't noticed the Fire Emperor's anger. The Fire Emperor's heart sank, because the more Yi Hao acted like this, the more uncertain he felt. Where did this kid come from? The Fire Emperor narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yi Hao. Under normal circumstances, if Yi Hao dared to be so impudent, he would have fought a few rounds with Yi Hao even if he had to risk his life. However, things were different now. The Fire Empire was in a perilous situation. At such a critical juncture, he decided that nothing must go wrong. Based on the battle just now, Yi Hao might not be weaker than him. Even if he won against Yi Hao, he wouldn't feel good. Yi Hao felt that something was amiss. Logically speaking, shouldn't the Fire Emperor get angry and attack him? But what was going on? The Fire Emperor looked as if he had just eaten a dead rat, and yet he didn't make a move. Are you going to fight or not? Yi Hao asked impatiently. The Fire Emperor thought to himself, why does this kid seem even more anxious than I am? Could it be that he's plotting something? Seeing that the Fire Emperor wasn't making a move, Yi Hao was too lazy to make a move either. He whipped out a lollipop and popped it into his mouth out of boredom. Looking at the weird thing in Yi Hao's hand, the Fire Emperor thought that it was some kind of treasure. He immediately raised his guard and looked at the lollipop in Yi Hao's hand warily. Why, do you want it too? Seeing that the Fire Emperor was staring at him, Yi Hao whipped out a lollipop and threw it to the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor thought that it was some kind of hidden weapon and retreated immediately. Plop! The lollipop fell to the ground. Seeing that the Fire Emperor was being so careful, everyone retreated nervously as they stared at the lollipop. The lollipop is so powerful. Seeing the expressions on everyone's faces, Yi Hao couldn't help but laugh out loud. After waiting for half a day, the Fire Emperor saw that the lollipop didn't change. The Fire Emperor looked at Yi Hao, who was laughing, and couldn't help but feel a little awkward. What's this kid up to? The Fire Emperor looked at Yi Hao, who was still eating the lollipop. He steeled his heart, and with a thought, the lollipop appeared in his hand. The Fire Emperor imitated Yi Hao's actions as he popped the lollipop into his mouth. The Fire Emperor's eyes widened in shock. What's this? Why is it so weird? As soon as the lollipop entered his mouth, the sweet and sour taste of the apple flooded his taste buds. He swore that he had never eaten something like this before. Logically speaking, for someone of his level, he wouldn't eat ordinary things. If he wanted to eat something, he would eat something that had the power of martial arts. However, this lollipop, although it didn't have the power of martial arts, made him fall in love with it. At this point, the Fire Emperor couldn't help but close his eyes as he savored the lollipop in his mouth. What is this? Could it be something from the higher realms? After finishing the entire lollipop, the Fire Emperor opened his eyes reluctantly and looked at Yi Hao in shock. Yi Hao looked at the Fire Emperor's expression and was completely speechless. Wasn't it just a lollipop? Back on Earth, even a 3-year-old child would be able to eat it. It was a very common thing. Yet, he gave it to a martial emperor who wanted to eat it so badly. Yi Hao couldn't help but sigh. People from this world were actually quite pitiful. How about it? Follow me, and you'll get to eat lollipops. Yi Hao took out another lollipop and spoke to the Fire Emperor like an uncle trying to entice a little girl. The Fire Emperor's eyes lit up. Really? Yi Hao stumbled. He was just joking and didn't expect the Fire Emperor to take it seriously. If he could really use a few lollipops in exchange for the Fire Emperor's loyalty, Yi Hao would be very happy to see it. One had to know that exchanging for lollipops didn't require much reputation points. Previously, when he subdued the Heavenly Wolf Kingdom, his reputation points had increased by tens of millions. Yi Hao didn't waste any time and directly threw the lollipop in his hand to the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor caught the lollipop in shock. Everyone was even more curious. What was it that could make a martial emperor reveal such an expression? If I follow you, how much of this can you give me? The Fire Emperor kept the lollipop in his space ring, as if he was afraid that Yi Hao would go back on his word. Yi Hao stretched out a finger, meaning that he would give him 1,000 lollipops a year. After all, he wasn't the pauper that he was before. 1,000 lollipops would cost him at most 10 reputation points. Using 10 reputation points to subdue an entire empire. Was there anything better than this in the world? One lollipop? That's too stingy. Seeing that Yi Hao had only stretched out a finger, the Fire Emperor couldn't help but twitch his lips. He was obviously not satisfied with this answer. Although 1 year passed by in the blink of an eye, cultivation didn't affect time. How could he only eat 1 lollipop a year? He had to eat at least 5 lollipops. The Fire Emperor shook his head and stretched out 5 fingers. 5,000 lollipops? Isn't this bastard afraid of getting diabetes? Seeing that the Fire Emperor had stretched out 5 fingers, Yi Hao couldn't help but complain. However, thinking about it, as a martial emperor, his body was extremely strong. He probably wouldn't get diabetes, right? Afraid that Yi Hao wouldn't agree, the Fire Emperor emphasized 5 lollipops. At least 5 lollipops. If it's less than 5 lollipops, I wouldn't dare. Chapter 427. However, when he saw the Fire Emperor's anxious expression, he had an idea. All right, we'll do as you say. Yi Hao then had an idea. All right, we'll do as you say. Yi Hao pretended to be pained as he took out 5 lollipops and handed them to the Fire Emperor. At the same time, he took out another lollipop. This is your reward. After all, Yi Hao understood that the rarer something was, the more valuable it was. Even if he gave the Fire Emperor 5,000 lollipops, the effect wouldn't be as good as 5 lollipops. The 1 lollipop that he gave the Fire Emperor was worth a few thousand lollipops. Looking at Yi Hao's pained expression, the Fire Emperor was even more certain that this was a rare item. In order to perform well in front of Yi Hao, the Fire Emperor rolled his eyes and retrieved a flask of wine from his spatial ring and handed it to Yi Hao. This is... Looking at the item in the Fire Emperor's hand, Yi Hao paused and blurted out, Erguo 2. AI, how did you know? Seeing Yi Hao call out the name of the wine, the Fire Emperor paused. Yi Hao looked at the white jade flask in the Fire Emperor's hand. Although it wasn't a glass flask, the Erguo 2 symbol on the flask hadn't changed. Isn't it written on the flask? Yi Hao pointed at the 3 words on the flask. The Fire Emperor was completely shocked. You actually know these 3 strange words? How is that possible? At this point, the Fire Emperor was completely convinced that Yi Hao's background was definitely extraordinary. One had to know that if the seller hadn't told him about these 3 strange words, he wouldn't have been able to recognize them even if he was beaten to death. However, Yi Hao was able to recognize them at first glance. Looking at the Fire Emperor's shocked expression, Yi Hao suddenly recalled that they were in another world. It was normal for the Fire Emperor not to recognize these words. However, what Yi Hao didn't expect was that because of his carelessness, the Fire Emperor worshipped him even more. However, if the Fire Emperor were to know that the source of this wine was Yi Hao, who knew what the Fire Emperor would think? I spent a huge amount of money to buy this wine. Please have a taste. The Fire Emperor couldn't help but change the way he addressed Yi Hao. All right. Yi Hao also wanted to give a try. He wanted to know what Chun Ziqiao and Shan Wansan had done with this wine. After Yi Hao opened the wine jug, a strong martial force gushed out from the jug. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for gaining 1,000 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for gaining 800 experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for gaining 600 experience points. Yi Hao did not expect Erguo 2 to be so overbearing. He had only smelled it once, and his experience had increased. Seeing that Yi Hao had closed his eyes, the Fire Emperor was extremely pleased. No matter what, she had gained some face in front of Yi Hao with this wine. One had to know that this wine had cost him more than half of his Marshall Dow crystals, and he had only bought 3 bottles. Every time he drank a mouthful of it, he would immediately start cultivating. This was the first time he had been so generous, directly taking out a bottle of wine as a gift. After Yi Hao smelled it, he tried to drink a mouthful. Yi Hao tasted it carefully and found that the taste of the wine had not changed. However, the wine was filled with Marshall Dow crystals. This should be the result of Chun Ziqiao's research. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 100,000 experience points. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for gaining 110,000 experience points. Yi Hao did not need to refine the wine at all. It was directly converted into experience points. However, it could be seen that Chun Ziqiao had put in a lot of effort into what he had instructed her to do. Let's not talk about anything else. To make the wine contain Marshall Dow crystals, he had to use the blood of some magical beasts or medicinal herbs that contained Marshall Dow crystals. He had to extract the Marshall Dow crystals from them and then infuse them into the wine. The most worrying thing about doing this was that it would affect the taste of the wine. However, Yi Hao tasted it and found that the taste of the wine was not affected. This was not easy. Master, how is this wine? The Fire Emperor looked at Yi Hao and asked. Not bad. Where did you buy this wine? How many Marshall Dow crystals did you spend? Yi Hao thought that it was time for him to visit Chun Ziqiao. After all, according to the current situation, Chun Ziqiao's Ergo 2 should not be much left. Furthermore, he should have earned quite a lot of Marshall Dow crystals. Why? Master wants to buy it too? Hearing Yi Hao's words, the Fire Emperor thought that Yi Hao had also fallen in love with the wine. That was why he asked him. However, the Fire Emperor immediately said, "This wine is good wine, but the price is a little too expensive. It costs 100 Marshall Dow crystals." How much? Yi Hao was secretly shocked. This bottle of wine was sold for 100 Marshall Dow crystals. It was indeed a little expensive. However, he was the only one who had the wine. Although it is 100 Marshall Dow crystals, it is still the kind that is priceless. In the black market, it has been sold for 150 or even 200 per bottle. The Fire Emperor continued. Bring me there to take a look. Yi Hao's heart was already blooming with joy. This time he had really hit the jackpot. Those Marshall Dow crystals were all experience points to him. However, when he heard that there was a black market, Yi Hao was a little unhappy. These Marshall Dow crystals should have gone into his own pocket. Now that they were being earned by others, how could Yi Hao be happy? Master, this wine is not easy to buy. The Fire Emperor thought that Yi Hao really wanted to buy it and couldn't help but speak up. Hearing the Fire Emperor's words, Yi Hao couldn't be bothered to explain. However, the matter at hand had to be resolved first. My Fire Dragon Empire is a vassal state of the Fiend Spirit Country. Originally, the Fiend Spirit Country should have sent troops to rescue my Fire Dragon Empire. However, the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor was an unjust person. He saw me, Yin Long, as a thorn in his side and secretly threatened Zheng Dong, not allowing him to send troops. This caused my Fire Dragon Empire to suffer countless casualties. This young emperor wants to avenge my, Yin Long's, dead soldiers. Hence, the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor must die. Who wants to be blindly loyal? Step forward. Yi Hao scanned the crowd as he spoke. When the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor heard Yi Hao's words, his face turned pale as large beads of sweat rolled down his face. Fire Emperor, save me. At this point, the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor could only place his hopes of survival on the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor glanced at the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor. He was displeased with the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor's apparent compliance. Hearing the Fire Emperor's cold snort, the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor felt as if his last hope of survival had been snuffed out. All of you, listen to my orders. Fight this kid to the death. The Fiend Spirit Country's emperor was completely mad as he pulled out his weapon and screamed. The Fiend Spirit Country's soldiers and generals looked at each other before lowering their heads. As citizens of the Fiend Spirit Country, are you all really going to be cowards and betray me? Seeing the looks on everyone's faces, The Fiend Spirit Country's emperor couldn't help but tremble as he spoke in exasperation. Your Majesty, The officials wanted to speak, but stopped. Looking at the current situation, going against Yi Hao would only lead to death. Didn't you see that the Fire Emperor had already called him Lord? If they went against Yi Hao, not to mention Yi Hao, just the Fire Emperor's anger was something they wouldn't be able to handle. Zheng Dong, you're my trusted aide. You can't be like these ingrates and not care about my life. The Fiend Spirit Country's emperor's heart turned cold. Suddenly, the Fiend Spirit Country's emperor saw Zheng Dong's figure and couldn't help but shout at Zheng Dong. Chapter 428. Young Emperor, this. Zheng Dong felt bad about the Fiend Demon Emperor's pitiful state. After all, the two of them had been emperors and ministers for at least a few decades. Zheng Dong was still loyal to the Fiend Demon Emperor. Zheng Dong, as long as you kill him, the Fiend Demon Empire's territory will be yours to manage, Yi Hao said directly. As soon as Yi Hao finished speaking, everyone's eyes were burning as they looked at Zheng Dong with envy. This was a great opportunity. As long as he killed the Fiend Demon Emperor, he would be able to take over the Fiend Demon Emperor's territory. Then he would have a meteoric rise. Everyone looked at Zheng Dong enviously. Why didn't such a good thing happen to them? The Fiend Demon Emperor was so angry that he almost vomited blood when he felt the burning gazes of his superiors. No matter what, he had treated them as his trusted subordinates. Now, for the sake of their own interests, they actually dared to kill him. Young Emperor, can I give up? I only ask that you spare his life. Zheng Dong looked at Yi Hao cautiously. Yi Hao was relieved to hear Zheng Dong's words. He had not misjudged him. The Fiend Demon Emperor was also in disbelief. He had not expected Zheng Dong to help him at this time. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, the Fiend Demon Emperor threw his head back and laughed maniacally. I was blind. Zheng Dong. The Fiend Demon Emperor suddenly looked at Zheng Dong. I don't need your pity, Your Majesty. Zheng Dong's heart ached when he saw the Fiend Demon Emperor's pitiful state. I order you to kill me. The Fiend Demon Emperor suddenly threw his weapon at Zheng Dong. I can't do it. Zheng Dong immediately knelt on the ground. The Fiend Demon Emperor knew that he was going to die today. Since he was going to die, he would rather die at the hands of his loyal subordinate. Of course, this was also his fault. If he had not been jealous of the Fire Dragon Empire, he would not have ended up like this. Young Emperor Yin Long. Zheng Dong is a good subject, the Fiend Demon Emperor said to Yi Hao. Yi Hao smiled at the Fiend Demon Emperor and said softly, Do it. A figure flashed by, and a small wound appeared in the evil Demon Emperor's neck. The evil Demon Emperor's life force was quickly fading. Before anyone could react, the black shadow had already disappeared. The Fire Emperor's heart was in turmoil. That's a martial saint. The Fire Emperor believed that only a martial saint could possess such incredible speed. This was because he himself did not see the appearance of the black shadow clearly. Thank you, young Emperor. Zheng Dong looked at the Fiend Demon Emperor on the ground. His body relaxed, and his tone became more dispirited. He thanked Yi Hao. If Yi Hao had really forced him to attack the Fiend Demon Emperor, he swore that he would not have been able to do so. Although the Fiend Demon Emperor wanted to kill him, his loyalty to the Fiend Demon Emperor would completely shatter. However, if he had been asked to kill the Fiend Demon Emperor, he would not have been able to do so. Fortunately, Yi Hao did not force him in the end. Zheng Dong, the Fiend Demon Country, Yi Hao, shall be renamed the Fiend Demon Country. You shall be the princess, Yi Hao said to Zheng Dong. Then his aura surged. Does anyone object? Everyone felt Yi Hao's aura and did not dare to object. They all hurriedly knelt on the ground. No one dared to stand out. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for subduing a spirit-level faction. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 100 million experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 10 million resurrection points. The rewards are quite generous. Hearing the system's notification, Yi Hao was very satisfied. After all, this was only a spirit-level faction. If he subdued a venerable-level faction or an emperor-level faction, he would receive even more rewards. This is only the first step. In order to save Yi Batian and CZMO, as soon as possible, he had to speed up his leveling. Yes, your majesty. Zheng Dong immediately wiped the dust off his body and knelt on the ground. Fire Emperor, let's go. Then, Yi Hao leaped onto the dragon's body. Then, the Fire Emperor followed him. After all, he had never ridden a dragon before. This was an eye-opener for him. We respectfully send off Master. Under Zheng Dong's lead, everyone shouted respectfully to Yi Hao. Master, where did you catch this dragon? Seeing the dragon's strength, he realized that it was only a martial honorable. One had to know that an ordinary adult dragon's strength was at the martial saint realm. That was why it was more difficult for martial artists to subdue a dragon. After all, a dragon's body was strong. A martial saint realm dragon could fight against a martial god realm expert. Therefore, in order to subdue a dragon, one had to be at least a martial god realm expert. Furthermore, dragons were rare and basically stayed on Dragon Island. However, Dragon Island was a forbidden area for the Dragon Clan. Unless one was tired of living, no one dared to barge in. Therefore, there was no great luck. Even if one had the strength of a martial god, it would be difficult to subdue a dragon. For someone like Yi Hao, subduing a martial honorable dragon would require a lot less effort. Furthermore, dragons were extremely strong. As long as they weren't crippled, even if they were sleeping, they would still be able to reach the martial saint realm. Hence, when a dragon sleeps, when it evolves, it's only a matter of time. Looking at the majestic dragon and its black scales, the Fire Emperor immediately fell in love with the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor fell in love with the gigantic dragon at first sight and thus wanted one as well. You want one too? Yi Hao's eyes revealed a sly look as he asked the Fire Emperor. The Fire Emperor nodded immediately. Then his eyes sparkled. Master, do you have an idea? Of course. I just don't know if you're willing to bleed for it. Yi Hao replied casually. AI, not this blood. Yi Hao looked at the Fire Emperor and impulsively picked up his weapon, wanting to cut his own wrist. Yi Hao hurriedly stopped him. I want a large amount of items that can replenish blood, stone, grain, and wood. That's all. Hearing Yi Hao's words, the Fire Emperor was speechless. These items were useful for mortals, but not for martial artists. The only valuable items were the items that could replenish blood and chi. As for the other items, he could have as many as he wanted. Considering that he was an emperor, he wasn't exaggerating. However, the Fire Emperor looked at Yi Hao in confusion. What do these items have to do with a dragon? Could it be that these items could be used to capture a dragon? If dragons are so easy to capture, they wouldn't be so rare and valuable. You don't have to worry about that. Yi Hao laughed. Then how much do you want? Although the Fire Emperor didn't believe him, he couldn't resist the temptation of a dragon and asked carefully. Prepare as much as you think the dragon is worth. Yi Hao laughed sinisterly. Chapter 429. Oh yes, why are you in the Fiend Spirit Kingdom? As the emperor of an empire, it was very suspicious for him to come to a spirit kingdom. Yi Hao asked curiously. It would have been better if he didn't mention this. The moment he did, the Fire Emperor's face was filled with worry as he sighed. Master, there's something you don't know. Seeing Yi Hao's curious look, the Fire Emperor explained. Beside my Fire Empire, there's a Great Sun Empire. Originally, both our empires were equally powerful, but it's the Great Sun Empire again. After hearing the Fire Emperor's explanation, Yi Hao's eyes gleamed. So the Great Sun Empire was only an emperor, but they had the help of a mysterious power. In this 1 year, they started to swallow up the surrounding powers in an attempt to break through to the emperor realm. As the saying goes, how can a ferocious tiger be allowed to sleep beside a bed? Hence, the Fire Empire, which was also an emperor realm, naturally became a thorn in the side of the Great Sun Empire. The Great Sun Empire had already decided to make an example out of the Fire Empire. Hence, the friction between the two empires was constant, and it was only a matter of time before a war broke out. Furthermore, The Great Sun Empire had the support of a mysterious power and was extremely powerful. On the other hand, the imperial court of the Fire Empire was in a state of unrest. The war hadn't even started, and the strong cultivators of the Fire Empire were already feeling insecure. The Fire Emperor had no choice but to prepare for a rainy day and find a strong ally. At this point, a black-robed man walked in and attracted his attention. This black-robed man was here to warn the Fire Emperor not to help the Fire Dragon Empire. Furthermore, the tone of the black-robed man was as if he didn't care about the Fire Emperor at all. After the black-robed man left, the Fire Emperor pondered for a long time before deciding to look for the black-robed man. He might be able to form a relationship with him. Hence, the Fire Emperor came alone. When he arrived at the Fiend Spirit Kingdom, he met Yi Hao. In the end, the dignified Fire Emperor was bought over by a few lollipops. "Master, please help me overcome this crisis." Thinking of the black-robed man who killed the Fiend Demon Emperor, the Fire Emperor knelt down in front of Yi Hao. "Get up. I will definitely help you with this matter." Yi Hao gestured for the Fire Emperor to rise. After all, even if the matter with the Fire Emperor didn't happen, he would still have to go to the Great Sun Empire. This was because the Great Sun Empire was his only clue. However, there was still one more thing that he needed to deal with. At night, the Fire Dragon Empire's captive camp was abnormally heavily guarded. After all, those were 20 million captives. Although they had sided with the Fire Dragon Empire on the surface, they were still afraid that they would cause trouble in secret. Moreover, even if they were recruited, there were so many captives that it was impossible to recruit them all in a short period of time. It was already 10 past midnight, and the captives were already deep in their dreams. In one of the tents in a corner of the camp, a soldier with a dirty face suddenly opened his eyes. "Young Emperor Yanlong, I will kill you." He was the leader of a saint-level force. Today, in order to survive, he had to kneel at the feet of an ignorant child. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this was his humiliation. He had already hidden for an entire day. It was time for him to leave. The leader walked out of the tent and saw that there was no one around. He then flew up into the sky. "Just you wait. The day I return will be the day I destroy all of you. Quick, inform the general that there's an enemy." All of a sudden, a shout came from below. The leader staggered as he was afraid that he would attract the attention of a martial saint. However, he didn't realize that behind him, there was a black that was following him from afar. "Master, who is that?" The Fire Emperor sat on the back of the dragon and looked at the back of the leader as he asked curiously. "The leader of the Blood Demon sect." Yi Hao replied softly. "What?" Looking at the leader who was running away like a stray dog, the Fire Emperor found it hard to associate him with the leader of the Blood Demon sect. Could it be that the black-robed men who went to my Fire Empire were his subordinates? The Fire Emperor guessed. Yi Hao nodded. "That should be right. Then why are we following him? To kill a martial saint." After hearing Yi Hao's words, the Fire Emperor's eyes widened. He felt as if his heart was about to jump out of his chest. A martial saint was one of the strongest cultivators in the entire world. The Fire Emperor swallowed his saliva and looked at Yi Hao carefully. "Master, are you confident?" "I don't know." "Then go what?" "I don't know." The Fire Emperor would never have thought that Yi Hao would go up without confidence. The Fire Emperor looked at Yi Hao. "Master, why don't we go back?" Actually, Yi Hao wasn't confident. However, the Blood Demon sect had been hiding in the shadows and causing trouble for him. Even if he couldn't deal with the Blood Demon sect, he should at least know where they were. That way, he wouldn't be so passive. Master, he's gone." Martial emperors could travel thousands of miles in a single step. However, Yi Hao chased after him for 2 whole days, and the leader didn't stop. Yi Hao couldn't help but sigh. This Blood Demon sect was really far away. Suddenly, the listless Fire Emperor spoke up. Indeed, the sect leader who had been flying in front had disappeared. Based on Yi Hao's words, there must be a spell here that blocked the real Blood Demon sect. Looking at this wasteland, if it wasn't for the sect leader leading the way, Yi Hao might not have been able to find the Blood Demon sect. "Let's go down and take a look." Yi Hao raised his guard and took out his weapon. He also used his mental strength to communicate with Zhang Fei so that he could summon him at any time. All right, humans were always fearful of the unknown. The Fire Emperor was no exception. After all, there was a blood demon sect under his feet. There might even be martial saints and martial gods. If he bumped into them, he would be finished. The Fire Emperor swallowed his saliva and followed carefully behind Yihao. Suddenly, Yihao felt that the heavenly Ean's spirit in his eyes was starting to react. Could it be that there's something the heavenly Ean's spirit needs here? Yihao was curious. At the same time, in a secret chamber of the blood demon sect, the blood demon ancestor suddenly opened his green eyes. The entire secret chamber was filled with a dark and terrifying aura. "Greetings, ancestor." The sect leader's voice came from outside the secret chamber. "Trash." The blood demon ancestor's eyes flashed with disgust. Outside the secret chamber, the sect leader suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. "I'm useless. Please forgive me, ancestor." The sect leader clutched his chest and knelt on the ground again. Suddenly, the blood demon ancestor let out an ear-piercing laugh. "They're finally here." "They're here? Who's here?" Hearing the ancestor's terrifying laughter, the sect leader was puzzled. "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.